Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed. We are in the Phaedo. We're at the end of the Phaedo. Thank you to Gabe. I joined his stream today. He was playing RuneScape and we were talking philosophy. That sounds like an ideal afternoon of fun. And welcome to his followers. My first raid. Hooray. We're all very happy. Oh, Scavenger is here as well from Gabe's channel. Welcome. I hope you find something curious, interesting, something to puzzle about on this channel, where we talk philosophy, we read philosophy, we challenge ourselves to match the level of mind. Yes, I got sound effects in my stream.
Wow.
Most of them are Owen Wilson saying wow.
Wow.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
So we challenge ourselves to match the level of mind and seeing of Socrates. This is challenging because most people think philosophy is personal opinions. What's your personal opinions about sorts of things? And Socrates is really passing on some vital information. Socrates, we're reading his last day alive. He's saying, I lived my life in the right way. I did philosophy correctly. It's very important that you understand what philosophy is, because if you don't, you will be left with people who claim to be wise, claim to understand, but they will be doing the exact opposite of what philosophy is. It is not about opinions. It's not about looking at the physical world and making opinions based on the physical world. In fact, I'm going to pass on something called the art of the logos. Now, this is puzzling for us as moderns because we don't have a word for logos. In fact, one of the great puzzles in philosophy, lifelong puzzles, is to figure out what the heck the logos is. You might not even get to the end of that question, but we need to ask it and carry that question around with us in our inventory, as it were, which is part of being a philosopher. Develop questions, polish them up nicely, and carry them around with you because it helps unlock the text. It's kind of like an archetypal video game, the best kind of video game. We have to play. So Socrates gives us words, special kind of words. We have to play. We have to be looking for puzzles. We have to be searching for answers, and we have to be pulling out questions because this makes it meaningful to us. It makes it interesting to us, and it opens us up to new insights, new understanding, and maybe even new states of consciousness. Okay, so we have to figure out what the logos is. Now, fortunately, I can give you a kind of working definition to start with, which is something you're going to have to carry around with trust for a while. The logos is pretty much the paradigm of understanding. It's language, it's words, it's also, it's understandable, but it's also the paradigm that everything follows in creation. Kind of a universal structure. So if you want to understand music, you're going to be looking at how the logos is reflected in the realm of sound and sound and time. If you want to study mathematics, you will realize that there are certain fundamental relationships that govern the whole of mathematics that reflect the logos, or the logos reflected into this realm. Same thing with astronomy, same thing with geometry, which is fascinating because it tells us that the world that we live in is understandable. Now, so what we want to do is understand the thing itself. So also, like whatever, I'm a musician, so I want to understand how it plays out in music so I can master music, but we want to understand the thing itself because the highest application of the logos is to, yes, It's about questions. It's more about questions than answers. In fact, a good answer is that which will unlock an even deeper question. Because it's about you. It's changing your state of mind. It's unlocking your understanding. And another thing about the logos that we're on a hunt for is it's understandable, but also we can experience it directly in a higher state of consciousness. So philosophy, the way Socrates is saying it really is, philosophy, philos sophia, love of wisdom, that wisdom that we seek is not only understandable. Hey, welcome to the chat, Des. It's not only understandable, you can experience it, which is fascinating. You can actually experience the logos directly in a higher dimension of reality. In other words, if it filters down and gives the understandable structure to physics, to music, to geometry, all of these things that we can go on the hunt for, then it has to have a kind of existence. Now, if it's the cause for these things in the physical world, its existence has to be prior to physical. We give that a fancy name, metaphysical. But what's curious about metaphysical is Socrates calls it the realm of being. It's a different dimension called being. And as we read through Socrates' words, we're unpacking adjectives to describe being, because he gives us a lot. He talks about it being pure, eternal. Our job is to take all of these words describing being from the text, collect them together in our inventory. Like if you're in a game, you might be farming, collect all the hides of the tigers that you're slaying, but then take all those hides, put them together into a suit of armor. We do the same thing, except it's the ultimate version of that. What we hunt for are words describing this realm of being. What we do about it is we put it together. What's the skill or craft that we use to put together these words that we uncover in our hunt? Dialectic. The dialectic is how we organize these words in a kind of structure to make something out of them. What are we making out of them? Well, it's kind of this system of understanding, the archetype of understanding. It's a way of fully bringing together into a unified understanding this thing. And being, definitely, we want to know what that is. The logos, we're developing an understanding of the logos. Also, the nature of beauty. We talked about that in Gabe's stream today. What is beauty itself? Not the adjectives we can see through our sense world, but what's the cause of those things? What's beauty in the realm of being? So we have to collect bits and pieces that we see in the text. Socrates will drop a bit here, drop a bit here. We have to collect them together like farming. Then we have to bring it all together in the dialectic, which means we also have to learn the dialectic. It's got 4 parts to it. It's pretty simple. That gives us a kind of understanding about this realm of being. This is called dianoia. This is what makes philosophy philosophy. So another way of talking about what we're doing is maybe even a better way is not philosophy, love of wisdom, but philodianoia, we could call it, love of understanding. Socrates is saying, look, this is what we really are here to do. We're only in the physical world for a very short amount of time, especially in relation to being, which is eternity. But we can do something special here. We can learn. A kind of learning, a kind of spiritual learning. The Greek word is paideia, and we remember that because every day is Pi Day for a philosophy, so it's paideia. This is what makes philosophy different than what we think it is in our everyday world, what people, experts claim it is. It's a kind of understanding that we can loosely call logos, that involves certain key terms. We call those terms selfer terms because they usually have a self in front of them. because self for the Greeks means the thing itself. It's honorific. It's not beauty, a beautiful thing. It's the beautiful. It's the cause of there being beautiful things, adjectives. It's the noun. It has its own existence in the realm of being, so we call it self-beauty. So we collect these self-er terms. These are our rewards. We bring them together in the structure of the dialectic. That gives us something called dianoia, a special kind of understanding using the dialectic in logos. By the way, that's a nice pair. Look out for pairs. And what's super special about dianoia is it can unlock your own higher consciousness. That thing you've been understanding, well, hang on a second, you've been working, so you've been actually engaged. You've been focused on it. Ooh, that's interesting. You've been really open, like as Gabe was saying, it's about collecting questions. So you've been curious, that's an open state of mind. You're interested, so you're focused. Sustained focus. By the way, you're not distracted anymore. It's a singular focus. All of these things are the ideal conditions for meditation. It's our natural meditation. Meditation, normally taught, requires you to put those things in. Sit on a mat with your eyes closed. Set a timer for 40 minutes. Why? So you're not distracted by things. Have a question that you focus on, or a koan, a kind of trick question. Why do we have a koan? Because it's a question you don't answer, so it keeps you in that state of questioning, like Gabe is saying. Focus on that question, or focus on your breath, or count to 10 and focus only on that. Let everything else fade away. Why? Gives you focus. All of these things we artificially put in with meditation are kind of artificial ways of generating what we're here to do anyway in the game of philosophy, or philodianoia, if we want to make it called that. So it's kind of like the ultimate hero's journey. And if you're going to make a good video game, you're going to take pieces of that and you're going to put it in your game. There's going to be a collecting of things. There's going to be a crafting them together. There's going to be a leveling up of your own way of being. That's going to allow you to discover more things, discover more questions. These are all shadows of the real quest of philosophy, the human quest. Similarly, if you plot out that journey on in a story, that's called mythology. And there are people who recognize, hang on a second, there seems to be an archetype in stories called the hero's journey. Luke Skywalker, Harry Potter, Katniss in the Hunger Games, they all go through the same stages of the hero's journey. And in philosophy, because we love to understand, not understand the physical things, but the cause of physical things. If you've noticed many beautiful things, what's beauty itself? You've noticed many equal things, what's equal itself? You've noticed many souls, what is the soul itself? You notice many selves. What is the self? Equally so, I've noticed a lot of games that follow the same formula. I've noticed a lot of films that follow the same formula. What's the thing itself? That's the logos. That's dianoia. But also, what's the highest use of it? That's what we're here for, says Socrates. To play the highest game. Absolutely, he says, it is important to mythologize it because that's a way of sharing it with others. In the Phaedo, Socrates starts by saying, I'm going to explain what philosophy is in a certain kind of way where I can give you puzzle pieces so you can, if you join me, if you try and play the game, if you practice this every day, you keep coming back to it as much as you can. If you try to match this level of participation, you will be able to pick up the greatest gift anyone can leave behind. I'm going to call it the art of the logos. I'm going to do all that. But also, I'm going to mythologize it. I'm going to take those terms and those relationships and express them. He uses Aesop's fables. So I'm not going to make my own mythology. I'm going to use one that already exists. So we can do the same thing in our gaming, in our writing, whatever we're interested in our music. We can mythologize it, but it's important that what we are mythologizing is the important thing. What Socrates says we are here to do. That's going to affect how we live, how we think, how we understand. Of course, we see through our understanding, so it's how we make sense of the world. But it will also affect how we are nurturing our souls. There is an effect of how we live here. We're changing our souls with our action. This is the kind of nurturing. And that's going to have an effect on us when we die. And hey, by the way, Socrates has given us in this text, which you can see underneath there, this Minotaur is a myth that's in the text. So one of our tasks is to not only figure out what the heck philosophy is and what it isn't. The dialectic is both. You got to do what it is and what it isn't. We want to see how is it being expressed in the mythology in the text. And one of the mythologies he gives us is the story of the Minotaur in the labyrinth. So that's a task we have when we get to the end of the text. So what it is and what it isn't. Two parts of the games. You have the orcs and the humans. You got to master both. So what philosophy is what we're on the hunt for. What philosophy isn't, also pull out the key terms. That's the hunt. So we've got a board that we've been using. This is the blackboard here. Look at all the notes we've been making. But then we take those notes and we craft it together into using a certain structure called the dialectic. Let's give an example. Do we have an example that I can reach here? Here we go. This is the dialectic. There are 4 parts. Definition, demonstration, division, synthesis, analysis. So one of the things we're trying to master is this. Only 4 parts. A and B, what it is and what it isn't. So that's what we're on the hunt for. And Socrates is giving us what philosophy isn't. Hey, by the way, if we don't have philosophy, we are going to cause all of the divisions and war and discord in the world. So we need to be aware of that. So we're not just understanding what we're here for, the ideal hero's journey, how we should nurture our soul, but we can also understand the cause of human problems, which is fascinating that he's giving us all of that. And he goes on to say, by the way, if we don't learn this art of the logos and do what we're here for, we're going to live poorly, nurture your soul poorly, and your incarnation is going to not be so great. You're going to go into another world. There's going to be some sorts of rewards or punishments. The really nasty souls might go into a place that they can't leave. But then we reincarnate and we go around again. And based on the way that you've lived, you might come back as a bee or a wolf or a hawk. But what we want to do is what Socrates did. He mastered this art of the logos, that he's giving us what we need to do ourselves, so he can go beyond this cycle of reincarnation to a higher dimension. Whereas Gabe was saying today, we meet better men and gods, better fellow travelers and guides in a higher realm. And then the journey continues in a much better way. These are the stakes. So to do that, we have to play the game, be on the hunt for. So the game, we have to be on the hunt for key terms. So specifically, a good thing to look out for key terms is, let's zoom in a little bit. So to be in the game, which is the ideal game or the human game, we have to, first of all, look for key terms. That's the hunting. That's the pelts that you pick up from the slain enemies. So a lot of them will have the word self in front of them, self-beauty. So we can call them self-terms. You were thinking if Usia is seeing through mind, wouldn't it be self seeing through mind? Interesting. What is that thing that sees and Ideos and weaves it together into reality? That's another good question you can take with you. While you're doing all this, you can be wondering about carrying with you a question in your inventory. What is doing all this, by the way? What is looking for the key terms? What is the thing that sees? This makes it real. Absolutely. When God things get values like they aren't simple. Right. So we take those key terms and we weave them into armor. So we weave those key terms, weave them together. That's using the dialectic. So we have to learn how to use those only four, really simple. Dialectic. And then that gives us our kind of understanding about not the physical world. Well, yeah, it is an understanding about the physical world, but it's far, far more important than that, about the cause of the physical world. And because everything in the physical world is in a state of coming to be or growing or decaying, it's always in change, it's always in flux. Socrates calls this the realm or dimension of becoming. And this is so it's an understanding about the cause of the realm of becoming, or the realm called being. So being and becoming. Because this is a self-term that we can create a dialectic on. In fact, so this can be an object of our study. We can have a document open in our favorite notepad document. What on being? And that would look like this. So we have a dialectic on being. And one of our dialectic on being. That will start with a hypothesis. So we're bringing together all that Socrates has been telling us about how to do it. You start with a hypothesis. And what's the hypothesis you start with? If it's a hypothesis, it has to be if, because we don't know for certain yet. We start with theories, because that's where we start in the physical world. Of course, one of the consequences of doing this is you can go beyond to that higher dimension and see things as they are, but we start with a hypothesis. If our subject, or the self, the key term of this dialectic, if it exists, that's your hypothesis. If it exists. That's side A, but then we also have to do side B. So it's like a what if universe. What if Spider-Man was bitten by a spider and gained superpowers? But you also have to do side B. If the subject or self Just put S. If the self or subject doesn't exist. What if your subject doesn't exist? And we're talking about a dialectic on being. So we have 4 categories. If being exists, if there is actually, and of course the word exists doesn't mean in the realm of becoming, exists eternally, immortally, if there is a higher dimension called being, if it exists, and if it doesn't. We can say 4 things about it. So these are the 4 categories. It's only 4. In a game, you have to hunt for material, but you also have to, right, interesting thoughts in chat. Even in order measures of 1. Maybe self is compared to the mind. Yes, okay, so Des has a really profound question he's brought to birth. If maybe self is to the mind as greater is to lesser. That's interesting. If being exists, if it doesn't, you can define. You have 4 categories, 1, 2, 3, 4. What can you say about the subject itself, self to self? What can you say about how that subject relates to something else? Another idea you're interested in? How does being relate to justice? How does it relate to beauty? Then how does this thing relate to others? So S is the subject. S is the subject, or self or subject. O is another, something else you can relate it to. And the 4th thing is others back to self. So if being exists, what can you say about it? We call that definition. So of all these things we've gathered, we have to say what would define being or beauty or whatever it is that you are working on. Second, how does it demonstrate itself or function towards something else, some other? Then those others who have been affected, how do they divide up, division? How do those things that have been acted upon by being, how do they relate to other things? So how does being relate to, maybe we could make another, if being exists, how does it relate to beauty? It will give an eternal existence to beauty. So now we've got beauty with an eternal existence. How does that relate to other ideas? How does it relate to people? Well, if beauty has an eternal existence, it can, this is the 3rd category, it can inspire all humans at all times to seek beauty itself, which will make them a philosopher. So these are the others. So how do these others, us that have been affected by beauty, which has been affected by being, how do we relate all the way back to the start? Well, we would become philosophers. So that's called synthesis, because we synthesize all of our understanding together, and analysis, because we have to take that synthesis and bring it back to the start to analyze our definition. This is how we play the game. Any video game, you have to take some time in the introduction part to learn how to play. This is what we're doing now. So quick overview of how to start the game. Now, all of these things, you will eventually end up doing this on. You will develop an understanding of why all these things are true. But you can trust Socrates to start the game. You got to start somewhere. It's an if. So we could do a little one for being. So if being exists, number 1, using some keywords from the text, we have seen, what can we say about it itself? It is eternal. That's one definition. Now we can collect more from the text. The more we collect, the greater your understanding, the greater your focus, the greater your interest, the greater you are preparing and nurturing your soul. Number 2. Okay, if it's eternal, so we've just defined it. So we've got the subject becomes a greater S. This rolls on to the next one. If it's eternal, how would being relate to beauty? So we'll say O is beauty. It gives beauty, B-E-A-U-T-Y, an eternal existence. If being didn't exist, and also we have to be doing existence. Okay, let's move this over here. So this is good because we have to keep in mind, we don't just do side A, we have to be doing side B too. So we've also got side B. Let's draw a line down here. If it doesn't exist, well, what can we say about it itself? It is, if it's not eternal, if being doesn't exist, then there is no eternity. Reality is an illusion, or reality is temporary. Interesting. Yes. Oh, off and on like a dialectic. Nice. So everything has 4 states. Right. So we've got 4 times 2. So maybe you could say 8, but really it's 4. So what if it doesn't exist? What can you say about being? It's fantasy. It's illusion. Socrates is crazy because it's fake. There is no being. It's just an idea. It's just an opinion. It's fake. Let's say fake. If it doesn't exist, being is fake, or it's fake or trick. Okay. How does it relate to the other? We're picking beauty. Beauty, if it's fake or if it's just an illusion, then beauty is an illusion. Beauty is fake. There is no such thing as beauty. It's an illusion. And people say it's just a matter of opinion. Beauty, they say, and people, yeah. Okay, let's get to that next. So the next stage is we have to say, okay, if beauty has an eternal existence over here. Number 3, how does this beauty that we've defined here, which rolls on. So notice there's a flow, there's a rolling on, there's a reasoning, there's an order. We are becoming more rational. Our thinking is going to improve the more we participate in our purpose, our ultimate journey, the ideal of thinking. Okay, it rolls on. So how does beauty affect another other? So how does it affect, let's say, us? If beauty has an eternal existence, how does it affect people? All people at any place and time can seek or be attracted to beauty or self-beauty. Self-beauty. Now, I'm just doing one for each. You can create a whole list of things in each of these paragraphs that you can then mythologize in whatever your art is. Okay? But if beauty was an illusion over here, so your other document you have open, people will say, how does beauty, self itself, what is being? It's fake. How does her being affect beauty? Well, beauty is fake. Beauty is an illusion. How will that affect humans? People will say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. People say this. It's just in the eye of the beholder. It's not real. It doesn't have an eternal existence. It's nothing more. Nothing more. It's just a matter of opinion. Don't get curious about it. Don't want to experience the highest aspect of beauty or this self-beauty. Don't worry about it. Nothing more. Okay? So now, as an example of this dialectic, how to do it, we have to do one more. It's 4 on each. See how simple it is? 4 is, so those people, so again, this will affect this, then this rolls over. How do those people at the end of this causal chain, a chain of causes, a chain of influence, a chain of unfolding of reality? So we're also learning about if this is an archetypal structure. Reality itself probably follows this. That's a question to have open. Let's just fix my webcam real quick. There we go. And then there we go. Okay. So, what will happen if, let's follow. What can we say about self itself? Beauty, being itself. It's eternal. Great. Where do we get that from? From the text. This is why we have to read. It's not our opinions. Socrates is the tiger in the forest we have to slay to get the pelt. He is someone who's gone through this. He's giving us the terms we need that we have to hunt for. He gave us this word eternal. It's not our opinion or belief. It's from the text. Very important. And of course, only in the last 5 years have we had a translation of Socrates' words into English that has been correct. So we've only been able to play this game for about 5 years, which is fascinating. Which may be we've only been left with this. What if the logos doesn't exist? So if we did a dialectic on not what if being exists, but what if the logos exists, we can do this, but we can also do this, and this will describe our reality because the logos hasn't existed since Socrates died. Because of the forces of history that have been in opposition, and we haven't had a translation until now. But good for us, we've got one now, so we can play. We can join the game.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Okay, so from the text, what did we get? Oh, being is eternal. All right, how does it function? If we want to know what being, we also have to know not just what it is, but what does it do? Oh, it gives beauty an eternal existence. So that's our other term. Okay, so if this other term has got an eternal existence, how does it relate to others? All people at any place and time can seek or be attracted to self-beauty, which is eternal. Self-beauty, let's keep going, which is all people at any place and time can seek or be attracted to self-beauty, which is eternal. So it's not going to go away. Doesn't matter who's in charge of the country. Eternal. Doesn't matter if the owner of McDonald's has $1 billion. He can't take and change beauty. It is eternal and in being. So not only is it eternal, so we can't, we're not going to be gate kept from reaching self-beauty, but when we find it, what do you know? We are going to be in that realm of being, which we seek. We want to know the cause of our physical world. We want to know where we're going when we die, if we finish our work here, that we're learning that this is all about. So we've got a way into being, okay? So if all people can be affected by beauty, number 4, how do these people relate back to the start? So notice, it's self-contained. It's beautiful in that way. So how do we relate back to being? Well, given what we just saw here, we will be attracted and seek beauty, which is eternal. We can learn true philosophy or philos dianoia, which I think is better than philosophy, because philosophy is to do with the virtue of wisdom, which is in being still, but I think dianoia is even more better way of describing it. And if that's our purpose, we can reach our purpose. And if our purpose is for all people at any place and time, we have another word that we got from the text that talks about a purpose that extends to all people, whatever planet you're on, or whatever culture you're born in, or whatever time of the universe you were born into. We call it destiny, the destiny of man. But if being doesn't have that existence, let's go to the side B. It's fake and it's an illusion. Okay, how does a fake and illusion affect beauty? It makes beauty fake or an illusion. Okay, then how does that kind of beauty affect people? People will say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, nothing more. Then how then will those people relate back to the illusion if they just think it doesn't have any existence? They will, I don't know, they won't pursue it. Not through philosophy. They won't seek they won't seek being, that's for sure. They will think philosophy or philodianoia is stupid, and they might get annoyed with people who talk in this way, and maybe even I don't know, be mad at people. Okay, that's kind of, yeah, be mad at people who talk in this way too. So they won't seek being. They think philosophy is stupid. And so how will these people relate back to being? They will hate. They might even hate thinking, or hate reasoning. If they think being is an illusion, or hate reality. That's interesting. But also this gives us a bit of an insight, because for each of these, we've just done it. We've done what we're here to do. And we've learned, this is a tutorial level because I've only really given one for each, but you can, and by the way, having gone through this, now I have because the last term is, how do we understand being? Oh, we can reach the eternal true philosophy through philosophy, and we can reach our purpose. So now I have a better understanding of being. It's our purpose or destiny. So next time I do a dialectic on being, self itself will be, so you can do it again, so you can keep improving. When you play RuneScape, you play it today and you play it tomorrow. And you're going to be better. You will have leveled up. And so next time I do one on being, I will say, what is it itself? Being is eternal. And also our destiny. Do you see that? Do you see how now I have a new definition? Because that was the conclusion at the end of having gone through it. Equally so, I have a conclusion. Hate reality or the logos or reasoning. Also, I have an understanding of why people in our world tend to think philosophy is stupid. Almost nobody that I know, nobody who lives in my street, seeks being. And most people who I run into on the street kind of hate reasoning or thinks that reality is dumb or stupid or unjust. So I've got an understanding of why we have our problems. I've also got a deeper understanding of being itself. So I have leveled up. By going through this process and then taking my conclusion and relating it back to the start. That's the dialectic. That's how you play the game. So that's an example of the dialectic. So how do we play the game? We pull out the key terms from the text, number one, and we call that selfer terms. We weave them together in the dialectic. That's what we just did. This was kind of a crash course or a refresher for those who have been following along for a while. Dialectic. Now, from going through that, we have developed an understanding about the cause or the realm of being, because whatever we're doing a dialectic on, it's going to be about being or beauty or justice or the soul or eternity, something that exists in the realm of being. So what's that called? An understanding about the realm of being. That's called, let's make this yellow. No, let's make it, yeah. That's called dianoia. Now, just like logos, we don't have an English word that means a kind of understanding using selfer terms through the dialectic on being. We don't have a word for that. When we say understanding, we kind of mean like, I don't know, scientific beliefs. I kind of had to have an understanding of how to drive my car through experience and listening to mechanics. It's not this. So this is a new word. By the way, if you've got this new word, you'll be able to recognize this because you've learned something new. And again, because this hasn't been in our culture since Socrates, we have only had what will follow if we don't have dianoia. That's the world we are in. Do I have dreams or receive them? Interesting. Yes. So Des in the chat is this reflection he's been going through has been giving birth to a lot of questions. Now, all those questions are good. We will encourage him to remember them in his question sack, in his inventory. And like a video game, if you have a nice question or a nice weapon in your inventory, polish it up. Sharpen the blade. Get those questions. Can you put a few questions together to make it a super question? Can you say the question in even fewer words? The fewer words, the easier it'll be to remember, the easier it'll be to carry. But Des has been with the channel for a long time, so he's familiar with how to play. So that's why he's getting so many good questions coming to birth in the chat. Maybe I enter a dream, so the dream is not mine. So yeah, so he could do a dialectic on what do I know about dreams. Socrates has talked about dreams in this text. So in this text, he has some words, key terms from the text that he can put together in a dialectic that will help him develop a dianoia about dreams. Interesting. Okay. And so why do we care about having a dianoia? These are, as we talked about, the ideal conditions for meditation. And if you are meditating on one of these realms, one of these ideas that exist in being, you can transition from meditation which is sustained concentration. Those terms we mentioned. If you have a question, you're curious, you're open-minded, you're focused, you're not distracted, you're not in the physical world, you're in your realm of thoughts and ideas. The ideal conditions of meditation. So if you go to any sort of meditation group or temple or ashram, they are going to be putting together these conditions artificially. Focus on your breath. Have a question about a koa, like a guru can give you a question. What is the sound of one hand clapping? You can't answer that question. So you will, as Gabe said in the chat, have a question that you can hold on to. Open, curious, focused. You're sitting on a mat in a hall with everybody else who's not running around partying. So it's kind of the conditions for not being interested in your physical senses, getting distracted by your physical body. So we can see that this is the true thing, the true quest of humans, that all yogas or ashrams or meditation halls try to create the conditions for. I mean, you could say it's artificial, but if it works, it works. But they're kind of, because their tradition doesn't have the logos, they have to do it in those ways. Which is why one of the things Socrates said in the text is, many are the staff bearers, but few are the actual mystics. That's a bumper sticker. Many are the people who carry a staff and say they're spiritual, but few are the actual spiritual people. And Socrates goes on, and those are people who have been doing philosophy in the right way, the way that we are learning here. And now we're seeing why. Sure, you can create the conditions through drugs or meditation or yoga halls, but we don't need to, because philosophy has the logos. What's the logos? Don't know. It's a question. But we do know some things about it. We know that it involves key terms that we can call self terms. That's part of the logos. So self-beauty, that we actually used in our dialectic on being a moment ago. The logos has a structure we call the dialectic. That's interesting. So use these little bits of nuggets in your dialectic if you like. In your dialectic of what the logos is. What else does the logos have? Well, if you take these and you piece it together, you will be gaining an understanding about the cause of our physical world or the realm of being, dianoia. New word, we don't have an English equivalent, but there is one in Greek, so let's take it. Like we have croissant. It's a French word, but we use it in English. Okay, so what's the significance of all that? It is the condition for meditation. And if you have sustained meditation on something that is in the realm of being, this unlocks or opens the door for another word that we don't have in English for the direct experience. So this is the spiritual part of why Socrates is saying this is the true spiritual tradition. Experience of your object of dianoia. This, another way of saying that is from meditation to contemplation. This word means to join with it. So, what's that called? Well, if you are experiencing a different dimension of reality that you have been developing an understanding of, it's kind of an upgraded version of a psychedelic trip. Because you're not just thrown in there. I mean, you are kind of thrown in there. It kind of happens to you, but you've got understanding. It's like the difference from maybe through meditation or a psychedelic trip, being thrown, taking a helicopter to the top of a mountain. Helicopter. Whereas Dianoia, you are climbing it. Also interesting, this is the logos, climbing the ladder. Also, you might pass people along the way. Pass a Buddhist who's at a certain experience. Pass a scientist who isn't even out of the realm of becoming. Pass a materialist who's in the realm of becoming. Pass a nihilist who doesn't even think the world of becoming even exists. You pass the nihilist, you pass the materialist, you pass the physical scientist. Oh, now you're in the realm of people who think that there is a realm of being. They might call it God, but they don't think they can get there. So they'll just join a group and go to church on Sunday or hope that they go to a better place a better dimension when they die. So you pass some religious people. Then you start passing people who are starting to have these experiences. Maybe psychedelic people or trippers or meditation enthusiasts. But then you might meet some people who've maybe dedicated more of their life to that. Maybe a Buddhist. Of course, the Buddhists don't have a logos. They're not doing this. And a Taoist. Oh, hang on a second. You've passed a Buddhist and a Taoist. But if you've got understanding, Dianoia, you might be able to know why they are where they're at and recognize both. Unlike that famous saying, a Buddhist and a Taoist cross each other on a path and they don't recognize each other. Why? Because they're taking a helicopter ride up to wherever they're at, Nirvana or the Tao. See, Nirvana and the Tao are two different experiences. They don't know that, but we can know that if we play the game that Socrates is leaving us to play. Many are the staff bearers, few are the actual spiritual mystics. And those, actually we've got a quote. So that's a cool quote from the text. And we pulled this out. Where is it? Yeah. We have an advantage, absolutely. Many are the staff bearers, few are the inspired mystics. These are, according to my opinion, none other than those who have practiced philosophy correctly. Socrates at 69, nice C in the Phaedo. Okay, so if that's what we're doing, what's the word for that? So this was a question that we've been talking about in Gabe's channel today. What is the eye of the soul? How do we perceive this other realm? It's not through the eyes, because not through the physical world of becoming. The physical senses, eyes and ears, are in the realm of becoming and can perceive the realm of becoming. We've specifically separated our soul from our body in this meditation to contemplation by simply having a question we're actually interested in and playing this awesome fun game, which all movies and video games are kind of shadows of anyway. So we've got some training. What's that called? That cognitive function that we can perceive the realm of being is called nous or noesis. Same root. One's got a G at the front. Nous. Let's just stick with nous. Same thing. Again, don't have an English word for it, but now we do. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, not only can we understand what we're experiencing, like one of the questions that came up in Gabe's stream today was, some people have this experience, but their only language to make sense of it isn't the self-er terms organized in the dialectic, but their own personal opinions or religious mythology. They don't have dianoia. So even if they have an experience of nous or contemplation, they'll say, oh, that's Jesus, or I saw the face of Allah. And they become more entrenched in the things that cause their problems, their false beliefs. We want to go from beliefs to higher level of beliefs, trusting in Socrates, because there are intelligent reasons, but only temporarily, We don't just stop at trusting. We have to go from trust to dianoia understanding, which is what we're developing over here. Understanding if it exists. These 4 things we can say about if it is, A, and if it isn't, B. So simple. Mind, so nous would be minden. Noia, nous. Oh, okay, the difference between noesis and nous. Okay, so they don't have that. They stay with their opinions. And so that's a possible danger. Even an experience of nous, for those who are brought up without this, might end up more firmly entrenched in their false beliefs and not be able to climb that mountain. They're stuck wherever they were. Okay, so Socrates says part of this is purifying ourselves from our false beliefs and perfecting ourselves in dianoia. So you could say we've climbed the ladder in our perfection through the love of the philos means love. Philos, dianoia, our love of dianoia. But we can also recognize, hang on a second, that our problems are caused by what we think is most real or most true or most beautiful, but actually isn't, because we haven't developed this dianoia. Maybe our parents seemed really wise and beautiful when they said, "You're no good," or "Don't trust women," or whatever it was they said. They looked like being. They weren't the real being. It was the shadow. So we have to perfect ourselves up, but also purify ourselves through applying this to what isn't true. So that when we do hit nous, we don't say, "Oh, it's the devil. Oh no," and run away from it. Or, "Oh no, this sounds like one of those scary drug trips that my priest told me was bad." Or, "I'm a sinner, so even if I do reach nous, I'm not good enough for that experience." Reality is bad, number 1. Scary. Demonic. Number 2, I am bad. I'm not good enough, so I will run away. Or it's crazy. There is no logos. There's no understanding. So we have to purify ourselves from those things. By the way, Socrates says earlier, he says, "Hey, by the way, if you don't learn this, people who claim to be smart," so if the logos doesn't exist, Socrates gave us a bunch of terms that we can pull together. He says, by the way, the people who will define themselves as most wise will be people who say that there is no being, there's no such thing as reality itself. They will say there's no logos, or there's no way of understanding our world objectively. It's just a matter of opinions, or might makes right. Whoever is in charge, they get to decide what's right and wrong. And so how will those people affect you? They will say, hang on a second. You are, logos is bad or no good. Logos is fake. They will say, reality is a scam. And you can't judge. You are no good. You are no good. Or They'll say something like, who are you to say? Who are you? So a better way to say this, let's undo that. They'll say, who are you to say? In other words, you can't participate in the logos. You can't experience nous in the realm of being. And of course, you are not good enough yourself. So all of these things they'll reject. But we're not talking about that because we can play the game. But it's good to look at what would follow if the logos didn't exist. So what's our game? Well, we've gone almost all the way through the text and we've pulled out key terms. We have practiced all the way through how to structure them in the dialectic, and we just did that. We are therefore developing our dianoia, our understanding. That is a purification from what we used to think, but also it's a perfection of our dianoia. That leads us to nous, the experience or the contemplation of that higher realm. By the way, hey, welcome to the chat. Moroni. If we can, by the way, what do we do in the dialectic? Here is a sphere. Well, we started by defining, demonstrating, division into many different parts, and then we synthesize that all together to bring it back to the start, synthesis and analysis. We can use that to collect together our seeing here. The earth is a sphere. Right, we're not on that question yet. We're doing a brief summary and then we're going to jump onto this question. But I'm glad that you are curious about what the earth looks like from a higher dimension, because that's the theme of today. So, can we unify all these together? Can we synthesize what it would mean? Oh, loud noise. Thanks for following. What can we call that which has key terms? That can be arranged in the dialectic. That applies to the realm, not our physical realm, but the realm of being. That creates an understanding. You're not jumping to the top of the ladder through drugs or meditation or chanting or just luck or maybe hitting your head one day. You are climbing the ladder of your own development. And you are verifying your understanding from the text, indirect experience. Yes, opening your third eye, right, with the eye of the soul, or as Maruni is saying, the third eye, nous. What's all that together? What's a verification of the ideal with nous, but you've understood it, and you've understood all of the key terms along the way. You can recognize this person or this person or this person or this person, and you know how to organize and relate to those people. Oh, you're this person? Let me ask you some questions using my understanding relative to where you are on the ladder to bring you up to your highest state of being through understanding. What's a word that unifies all that together? Art. Art. Art of the logos. Art. Level up. Why? Well, if you've got an art, there has to be, let's use what we can see. Let's use what we can see in the realm of becoming to shine light on what is the highest version of it. Like today, we've been talking about how all of these things are part of the hero's journey of Harry Potter. The hero's journey to go on a journey to level up and develop through understanding and greater experiences and return home leveled up. It's also, these are all elements of every video game we've played. So we are looking at examples or adjectives in the realm of becoming to shine light on what the ideal is. What is the true hero's journey? What is the ultimate game that we are here to play? Likewise, we can understand this by looking at the realm of becoming. What's something we can see with our physical senses? The art of medicine. Transforming, like leveling up, yes. Personal transformation, absolutely. So, the art of medicine. Don't you need some sort of awareness of the ideal of the healthy body that maybe never will exist? You probably will never ever see someone who has the ideal healthy body. It'll have an existence not in the realm of becoming. Interesting. By the way, do you have to understand all of the key terms in medicine for you to have the art of medicine? To know what an arm is, to know what a leg is. And also to know the deviations on this ladder here. What cancer is, and how cancer is different from tuberculosis, and how that's different from a cold. Do you have to structure it hierarchically through the dialectic, through the version of the dialectic for medicine, so you know what healthy body is, but hey, you have to climb that ladder. You know what a common cold is, but it's not quite as bad as cancer. Right, yes, and then you have to prescribe. So, you need an ideal, that's this one here. You need the key terms, that's this one here. You need to see how they are structured together. By the way, these two things together, if you know all the key terms, you know the structure leading to the ideal or caused by the ideal, that gives you an understanding of medicine that will allow you to benefit yourself or anybody else. All of those things are required for the art. Socrates said about 3/4 of the way through this text, look, so far I've been giving you arguments about the soul. Why the soul is in the realm of being. But if you just trust me, then one of these people who think they're smart because they know that reality doesn't exist, he calls them people who are not lovers of dianoia and lovers of wisdom. So wisdom is one of the virtues where you practice developing this at all times. They say, well, I'm smarter because I say that there is no realm of being. So they're not lovers of wisdom, they are lovers of contention. Debate bros, we might call them. Haters. Turn on the news and it's run by the same people who are trying to silence this to keep us enslaved in ignorance. What do? They're always yelling and fighting. They're not solving problems. They're not using an art to recognize the ideal, using their dianoia understanding to recognize where we are as a society and what we need to do to go to the next level. They are just yelling at each other and fighting each other. They are idiots, but a certain kind of idiot called philonikos, lovers of fighting. And they aren't a lover of dianoia, they are a lover of opinions. Look at all of my opinions. Aren't I great? Who cares about your dumb opinions? We want to reach truth. Truth is open to everyone. You don't have to be in the right political party or the right skin color. Doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. Nous is true for everyone. Same thing with understanding. If it's the pattern that is universal, anyone can understand. However, it can be attractive to pretend you have knowledge. Dianoia is like understanding, but it requires certain self-terms, certain key terms that are about the realm of being. And it requires a certain structure called the dialectic. So it's like understanding, but it's understanding applied to not our physical world, but a different dimension called the realm of being. That's dianoia. We don't have a word for that. But dianoia is itself a kind of springboard to proving or verifying your understanding in a direct experience. So this is a kind of wisdom. Having both of these together is a kind of wisdom that might be called phronesis. So you can practice this. This is the virtue of wisdom. And then when you get there, that wisdom upgrades. That's one of the puzzles in the text, by the way. What the heck is this phronesis? Why is that a kind of upgrade of wisdom? Now, in order to even climb this, we have to let go of what we thought it was to be wise. Socrates is teaching us something new, so we have to change our minds. And we have only been able to read this text in the last 5 years. What is 33? I don't know what that question's about. You know. Don't know. Okay, so how do we learn? How do we change our mind? Well, we have to learn, but we also have to let go of what we are holding on to. Because whoever taught us what it means to be wise wasn't this. I mean, unless you were friends with Socrates 2,500 years ago, I can bet you $1 million it wasn't this. And in fact, all human beings are born without the art of the logos. So they can't judge arguments. They can't judge what is actually being, what is true, beautiful, good, just. So we believe our earliest teachers or parents. So whenever they appeared to be most strong, we thought that was wisdom, and then that keeps us in our problem and leads us towards fate. A repeating cycle of problems while we seek what we think is beautiful, which is usually having an opinion. A kind of prejudice that you get from your parents usually, or your earliest teachers, or a parental surrogate. So, by the way, people who want to manipulate others, like Republicans or conservatives or fascists, they will say, hey, so long as you follow the opinions I'm telling you, you can cosplay as actually having wisdom, actually having dianoia, actually having the art. So you can be racist, and you can act like you're smarter than everybody because you're white or because you agree with my opinions. This is a certain attractiveness. You can pretend to be up here without playing the game, without doing any of the work, without any of the practice and learning and education. All con artists trick us in that way. Hey, if you just believe what I sell you, I'll take your money, and in return, I'll pretend like you have wisdom. Name a religion. Name a political group. Name a scammer on YouTube. They're all doing the same thing. So we have to let go of this. Lover of opinion, philodoxia. And by the way, it takes work to uncover the opinions that we don't know we're carrying. So it's a purification. And then we have to perfect ourselves in this game, take on the quest to reach this highest level, and we can call that our destiny. So these are a pair, destiny and fate. We want to reach one and escape the other. So what? Well, so we can say, art of the logos. So this is an important topic. What do we do when we have an important term or topic? Do a dialectic on it. So what if there is an art of the logos? So let's do a dialectic on it. Because that's playing the game. So, what if? They all start with what if? Art. No, the art of the logos. Notice if it's the, it means it's a noun, which means it has to have an existence in being. And it's not dependent on opinions, not my opinion or your opinion or even Socrates' opinions. It's the logos. if it exists. And of course, we just did a little dialectic on being over here, remember? So when we say the word exists, we have a slightly more polished understanding or dianoia about what that word means. Oh, it's eternal. When we say the word exists, whenever we do a dialectic, what are we saying? Oh, it has an eternal existence. Oh, really? Oh, yeah, and it's connected with beauty. Really? So, if the logos is existing, it means it's eternal? Oh, yeah. And it would somehow inform beauty? So if the logos is a kind of understanding, does that mean that there is a rationality or an understandability about beauty? Oh my God. See how our dialectics feed into each other? Oh, and hang on a second. If the logos exists, just using what our dialectic we did earlier, then anybody at any place and time can not only seek self-beauty to reach the eternal, but could be seeking the art of the logos? I mean, I don't have to be born in Socrates' time. I can do it today. Oh my goodness. We've leveled up. Oh, does that mean that learning true philosophy to reach our highest purpose might be tied with the art of the logos? All of this comes with us in the word exists. So if it exists, side A, but also if it doesn't exist. What if it doesn't? All those things we said, what if it doesn't exist? What if it doesn't have all of those things? Side B. So we can do a dialectic on the logos. Now, I would be a rubbish teacher if I did it for you. But I've given you the pieces to fill out what the heck the art of the logos is. And by the way, if it doesn't exist, somewhere in this category you'd have the experts who teach philosophy, or the experts on YouTube channels who claim to be philosophers or claim to be like alpha bros or debate bros or selling what it means to be a man. All of these people will be in this category because they don't know the art of the logos. In fact, they think they are most wise because they say there is no logos. And all of their arguments, Socrates gives it the expression. What do? They go around anti-logos. They don't do anything. They go around shitting on people who are doing things that are good. People who are doing this work, doing their best to uncover their unsuspected false opinions and beliefs, to purify them, to be better. And they're doing the work of this fun, awesome game. They will come along and just shit on them, try and distract them with dumb jokes or insults or trying to be crude. They think it's cool to be crude. That's an interesting thing about language. Often the cool words were often really gross, like, hey, bad is actually good. That kind of thing. Which is curious. Somehow we've made vice into a virtue. The most shocking and disturbing and disgusting you can be. Socrates calls that anti-logos. They're not doing anything, they're not creating anything, they're just contradicting everyone. By the way, that they're a lover of contradiction. That's called philo, which means love. Nikos, lover of contradiction or fighting. And they're not a lover of philosophy, they love having their own dumb opinions. Philodoxia, lover of opinions. So somewhere in your dialectic, because I'm encouraging you to play,
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
As Gandalf says, somewhere these key words from the text. I don't think philodoxia is in the text. I think that's in the Republic. So let's cross this one out. Somewhere these two words will show up inside B. Which is good because we can diagnose our problems when we are stuck, when we are sad, when we are depressed. when we think we're not good enough, when we think there's no meaning in the world, when we think it's just contention, we can diagnose ourselves, and also we can diagnose humanity. Because we want to understand the cause of our problems. Hey, isn't it the same bullshit over and over and over ever since Socrates' time? The repeating, never-ending, repeating cycles of bloodshed and ignorance over and over? Wouldn't it be good to know the cause of them? How do we do that? Well, we have to diagnose. So how can we understand the cause? Well, we'd need to recognize the key terms. Oh, and the order of those key terms. That's the dialectic. Why? Because these things higher up cause the things lower. That's what it is. Causal chain. So we're looking at causes. So here. So this thing being causes beauty to have an eternal existence, which causes all people at any space and time to seek and are attracted to self-beauty, which is eternal and in being, which then causes us to be able to seek our purpose, causes us to learn the art of the logos. So being has, so we can see a causal chain, but also the art of the logos requires us to climb the ladder up the causal chain. All of that's needed to understand and diagnose problems. That's in the art of the logos. So we can diagnose our problems, what if it doesn't exist, but we can also understand the true quest of man. You don't have to be in the right club. You don't have to be Republican or Democrat or Buddhist or Taoist or Hindu or Muslim. It's not about groups. Literally, it's beyond groups because it's beyond opinions, and groups are groups with opinions in the physical world. So one of the words that we've got in the text is beyond opinion or beyond belief. It's unopinable, by the way, is the word. So if we're going beyond groups or opinions, we can go beyond divisions to what is true and universal. We have a way of unifying humanity. Now, who cares about unifying humanity? Well, we kind of do, but as Socrates says, that is secondary. We have a way of unifying not just humanity in dianoia, nous, and the art of the logos, the art of all arts, the art of all video games, of all heroes' journey, but also more importantly, we have a way of unifying ourselves. Socrates says this is most important. The beneficial effect we have on others is secondary, unifying soul or self. So I'm not doing this for you, but I'm giving you, hey, this is, if I was doing it, this would be in somewhere on this. In which category, which of the 4 categories, up to you. It's your game. By the way, if you're happy with it, or part of this game is sharing with it. You can unify. Because it's universal, because we all benefit by being in this game, join the Discord server. Share your dialectic. And hey, maybe this is a really nice dialectic. I'm going to mythologize it. I'm going to go back to this thing on beauty. All of the key terms, so the key terms we've been collecting from the text: eternity, beauty, existence, maybe, self-beauty, philosophy, dianoia, destiny. I'm going to turn each of them into characters. You can make your own, or you can be like Socrates and borrow from somebody else's. Like, oh, this is Spider-Man, this is Captain America, this is Iron Man, and so on. So those are the key terms. But also we've been talking about their relationships. How does eternity affect beauty? How does beauty affect people? How does people relate to philosophy? So there's the drama. So if you do this, share your dialectic. And also if you make your own fan fiction of Spider-Man or whatever art you're into, painting, music, video game, share that in the Discord. And you can join the Discord below. Should be a link. Part of the game is sharing it with fellow travelers. Why is that key? Because fellow travelers and guides are two keywords that we just read. Socrates is saying, hey, by the way, I'm going to a place with better fellow travelers and guides. And one of the problems with not nurturing your soul in this way while you're here is, okay, so this is the text we just read. Literally, it's the last things we've highlighted. Can I zoom in a little bit? There you go. Okay, if you become attached to the physical world, your body and your senses. Why is that funny? Oh. My thingies. Maybe it's because... Let's do this. No. Let's fix that real quick. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so if we instead become attached to the physical world and our physical body, we will live a life that fearfully flutters around our body and the visible place. We will struggle much. We will suffer much. So again, this is what happens if put all of these key terms Socrates is giving you. This is like slaying a tiger and getting its pelt. Collect them together in your inventory that you can then use to fashion into new armor. That skill is the dialectic. Okay, so this would be inside B. If we didn't have it, we would instead be attached to our body, and that would cause us to fearfully flutter around the body in the visible place. We would struggle much. We would suffer much. And by the way, we've been appointed a daemon. That's one of our questions. What the heck is a daemon? And it would have to use force to lead us away. That doesn't sound like fun. And also, if we our soul will do activities that are akin to how we are nurturing our soul. And if it's an unjust act, such as slaughter or trafficking in such crimes and things like these, when you do die or separate from the body into the other world, you'll be turned away by all. You'll be avoided and turned away by all. And they will neither be willing to be your fellow traveler or guide. Thus you will keep wandering completely at a loss until a certain time has been completed, and then you'll be reincarnated into your proper habitation. So necessity, so there's a necessity into your incarnation. It will be what's proper for you, so there's a certain kind of justice involved because it's necessary and proper. Socrates pointed out most people are going to come back as animals based on the way they've been living. But if you are a soul that has completed a life in a pure and measured way, which we are relating to practicing and playing the game of the art of the logos, you will meet with gods as fellow travelers and leaders. So that's a curious thing. You're going to be hanging out with gods. Wow.
Wow.
So upgrade those friends that you do lecherous things at the pub with for gods.
Wow. 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 Wow.
They'll be your fellow travelers and leaders as soon as you arrive at the proper place. Okay, so these are key terms that we could take with us. Whoops. to add into if the art of the logos exists, but also a reason to share, because we are fellow
I'm looking
travelers
for
here.
someone to share in an adventure.
So we're kind of nurturing ourselves to play the game with better gods there by playing as best we can with the people here. This is everything we've been seeing so far. So we are getting towards the end of the text, meaning we've done a lot of this as we've gone through. We needed to really figure out what the art of the logos is. Took us all this time to figure this out and why it's important. Like, the stakes are important. But also, as we've seen in the dialectic, by going through this reasoning, we've been made better, yeah. We take it all and we get to the end, but the end should bring us back to the start again to see what was there the whole time in a new way. That's synthesis. So it's synthesis and also analysis. The second part of other back to self means other back to the self. So we're at the end of the text. We should be therefore, Socrates is going to lay on us a big ass speech. It's going to be puzzling. It's going to be about, let's go back to the text. Hey, look, Socrates just talked about the significance of the daemon and how there are, we're all, okay, we need to be as good and phronesis as possible. If death were an escape from the nurturing of the soul, that would be a windfall for the wicked. But there's no escape from yourself or from your vice except as becoming as good and phronesis as possible. We've been carrying a question. What the heck is phronesis? It's something to do with both our nurturing, our practice, our habit. What do we do with our day? Are you joining in with the stream while you're hanging out or doing other things? And therefore training, nurturing, practicing your soul? And are you doing your best to learn the dialectic, play the game? Your education and nurture makes you as good and phronesis as possible. You won't even know what phronesis is unless you're doing it, because that's one of the questions. You will be greatly benefited or harmed right from the beginning of your place, of your journey in the next dimension, in the next realm. So, when each person dies, the daemon that we have been allotted in our life tries to lead us to that place, to the next dimension. And we are judged and we proceed with that guide. And then another guide leads us back after a bunch of different things happen, many and long-lasting periods of time in the next realm. So different guide guides us back. So our path to that realm, which we want to do while we're here, that's the true practice of philosophy. We want to die many, many times before they actually bury us. So we know where we're going. We've experienced it. We've got nous of it. We've understood it, dianoia, and we've used our nous and dianoia to artfully benefit our friends and ourselves whenever we're in problems or whenever we're puzzled. Develop the art. Okay? It's not simple. There are many paths to that place. Otherwise, there would be no need for guides. Our special daemon that communicates to guide us while we're here. There are many branches and circuits. Now, what makes Socrates able to say this? How the heck does he know? It seems like there's one path. It's the art of the logos. But I guess we all live different lives and different parts. Like, this might be the first time you've ever heard that there is something actually knowable. Or the first time you've actually heard there's something that's universally understandable. That's the cause of the understandability of music or geometry or astronomy. There is a logos that's endianoia. So you've lived a very different life. And because of your upbringing, the time and the parents and the culture and the religion that you were born into, your false beliefs, what you think, what you don't know that you believe is good and worth doing and worth spending your life doing, will be very different than mine. That's our fate. Our fates will be different. Our whole lives would be moving towards our unsuspected fates. So even though there's kind of many other staff bearers, but only philosophy or the art of the logos is the true spiritual or personal development tradition, there are many paths from our lives. There are different things we have to purify. So there are many branches and circuits. Now, why can Socrates say that? What makes him so gosh darn sure? I report this from the sacred rites. So someone just reading this text casually, they won't have any idea what that is. But this has been one of the things that he's been giving us clues on. He talked about the true spiritual rite, the true spiritual tradition, the mystical rite that required us to be developing the virtues and the art of the logos. Right, questions about the daemon and what creates our dreams? If our dreams are masterfully written, then maybe our dream master or our daemon has the art of the logos too, from chat. Interesting. So, the sacred rites, we've been given some material earlier to figure out what the heck that is. And it does involve nous, by the way. So he's experienced this, he's seen this. And also the sure signs of the common laws. So some sort of signs in what is the common law? What is the laws governing everything here? The logos. So his experience and the logos can allow him to make these conclusions that he's passing on to us. The well-ordered and mindful soul follows its guide and is aware of our present circumstances. You can figure out why you're having the problems you're having, and you figure out why you've been reincarnated here, what you are here to do. Only if you are doing this well. Well-ordered is means the virtues. Phronesis, the word is phronesis. We don't have a Greek word for that, but it's a kind of upgrading of our virtues when we go from dianoia to nous. That's a big puzzle. We've gone through that. You can find all the past videos on YouTube if you want to go back through them. But yes, so we want to rid ourselves from our attachment to our body. Talks about only doing what's necessary, only eating the amount of cake you need to, so you can get back into some philosophy, guys. Do it at all times. And you know what? If it is a paradigm that's in everything, then if you're doing music or you're doing your whatever occupation you have, if you can find an art in there, if there is an understandable system, you can use it as a way of discovering the logos or mythologizing your discoveries in the logos. That's one of our quests. How can we be doing this at all times? So, and we're here for a really, really short time compared to eternity. So, our education and our nurture. So our nurture is what we practice, which are tied to our virtues. Returning to grace. Welcome. Yes. Yes, we emanate from our causes, which, by the way, is reflected in the dialectic. Notice there is something self itself at the top that then unfolds into another dimension through its functioning, which then unfolds into division and then meets us at the bottom. And then we're here to nurture and learn paideia. Right, dianoia to nous, returning to grace, a way of knowing. Right, a way of knowing to just knowing. So the unfolding and the return. But interesting, the word grace was shared in the chat, because this is actually a special word to Socrates. Yes, to be able to make this journey in this life and in the next gracefully. Another word for that in Greek is charm. Socrates has a certain amount of charm. So if you master this art of the logos and you've practiced it, nurtured with your virtues, you might develop a kind of thing called charm. And by the way, charm is one of the things that Socrates brings up in the Republic, which involves a more in-depth training of the Philosopher King. And we're probably going to go into the Republic next. So That's a good teaser. So this nurture thing, that's to do with the virtues. He's given us bits and pieces in this text, but we've kind of had to trust. I've given a working definition of each of the virtues so we could solve some puzzles, but it's important that we don't just stay at the level of trust, we go into the text. So we'll probably do the Republic next, where we can really do dialectics, thumbs up, do a dialectic on the virtues and discover what the highest level of charm or grace is. So there's a little teaser for the next read along, which maybe is in a few days because we're getting close to the end, maybe in a week. So Socrates must have had phronesis, and this is the highest phronesis. Throw more potatoes in to your stew. Phronimotatin is the Greek for the highest amount of phronesis. And the good, of course, something that we want to reach. Same as an animal is an animal without thinking. Right. So an animal is a certain lower incarnation. He can't go through these problems. He can't think at the level we're able to think. But they somehow have within themselves what's needed for their own kind of excellence. A baby goat has everything it needs to be the excellence of goatness without having to think. We, on the other hand, have some work to do. Some kind of education or paideia and nurture that we can bring with us. So it's a kind of, it necessarily can't be about Bugattis or dollars or the stock market or the sports teams, because those things we can't take with us. It has to be a kind of education and nurture that is eternal, or about the realm of being, an understanding, an art directed to the realm of being, the art of the logos. So Socrates has saying, I trust that I'm going to a good place with better men and gods and masters. Right. So this is we are being an active agent in this activity. Sure, we are awaking our own natural curiosity. We naturally are curious about what causes our problems. We are naturally curious about enlightenment or the nature of the eternal. So it is kind of innate, but also we kind of have to use our will. And that's important. So we're not like just letting it, like there is some sort of like when you reach a higher level, you realize that, oh, I'm in a certain flow state where it's automatic, but it does take training. It is a practice of the virtues. The virtues are kind of a practice. Now, phronesis isn't. It's innate and eternal. But to get there, we have to learn the art of the logos. We have to practice because we have been trained in the opposite way. Being a human being, we get a problem. This thing, we have to purify ourselves from our chains, escape the fate. So we have to do some work. We're doing here. And by the way, there is a word for that. It's a word that's the adjective assigned to courage. You need some courage. Why? Because all of this that we've talked about today should not be familiar or comfortable. It should not be what you're used to. Your family probably will never talk about this stuff. Everyone on your street probably will look at you crazy if you talk about it at the pub. It's not going to feel true. But the Logos says we should trust Socrates. And Socrates says, no, just stay at trust. Use that trust to develop dianoia. In that way, we've been discovering, play the game, pull out the key terms, arrange it into dialectic. He goes into more of what's required in that earlier on, just a little bit back. He said, let's just review it real quick. Shouldn't be too far back. No, too far back. It's really close. So it's not going to feel right. It's not going to be familiar. It might even be the opposite of your upbringing and education and what you've normally been training to do. But to follow the logos anyway, that's courage. That's courage. And that requires a power to do this. It's going to be easier to follow the crowd, teaching us to trust the grace within, not without. Right. Exactly. Right. And what's curious is the more we do this, the more we become like the daemon, or like the charm and grace of the daemon, or like the art of the logos. Right. Absolutely. But in the early stages, it's going to feel wrong. It's going to feel weird. It's going to be different. That's why we need to practice the 4 virtues. The 4 virtues we have to put in. The 5th virtue that is the gold coin we trade the other virtues in for phronesis. That's the eternal, never loses its power. We can take with us. When you know, yes, that kind of knowing. But in the meantime, we need to trust the logos while we develop our dianoia and the virtues, and then it gets upgraded. That's called courage. That's the virtue of courage. Right? We talk about courage like, if you just charged at the army on your own, that's stupid. That's not courageous. If there was reason to think that this was the best thing to do, maybe you see a path through the enemy ranks and you can, I don't know, you're not taking on the whole army, but you can get to the leader or something. That would be courage. There needs to be a reason for it. That power of following your courage, virile. That's the word virile here. So when Socrates begins to talk about his introduction to his final speech, where he talks about the daemon being appointed to us to guide us in this journey, he says, it's just to do this. So he's calling on your practice of justice, which is all justice is doing your intended function. So if our intended function or our destiny is this, he says, hey, keep going, do this. It's just to do this. So the other 3 virtues kind of sit under justice. We'll get into that in the Republic, but it's just, and one of the 4 virtues is justice. One of the other 4 is courage. Virile, be virile. Sometimes that's in some texts, it's manly. We might say it's alpha. Be an alpha. Do this. Stay with me here, guys. We're at the end. We're talking about the daemon. We're talking about how we move into the next life. Justice and virile. So, there are many different paths to that unseen place. Otherwise, we wouldn't need a guide. Hopefully, from this whole text, you've seen why I can make that judgment. But also, I've seen it. I have had the experience. I have separated from the body. Okay? And from, by the way, we need to train ourselves in the art of the logos. Stay true no matter what. Practice it. That's the nurture. The education is this dialectic stuff we've been doing. Dianoia to nous. It's the doorway in. Actually, we've got a nice quote. That's nice to throw up now. From earlier in the text. Here. Self-justice, beauty, and the good. All of those self are terms. In fact, the ousia, there's our third eye, or the eye of the soul. This is Gabe Dub's question from earlier. What's the essence that these things have, but also is the essence of that part of our mind that can grasp the realm of being, the ousia, self-justice, beauty, and the good. The ousia of all of those selves in where? In being. Let's do it here. Bright. Let's do it on this background. So, self-justice, beauty, the good, the ousia of all of the selves in being is contemplated. We talked about that today. Meditation to contemplation, where you join to it. Not through the body. I mean, no doi. no doy. But whosoever prepares themselves, there's our education and nurture, by most accurately dianoiaing. Yeah, hi man, thanks. Enjoying you being in chat, and I'm enjoying the thoughts and questions. It's a big day today. We've got 4 viewers in chat, it's telling me. Oh, we had our first raid today, by the way. I was checking out Gabe's stream channel, and his bros are raided today. So our first raid. So, by the way, all of these things that we've seen at the end of the text that we've been going through today to revise them is shining more light on this quote, which is all the way up at 65E, which is page... Like, we're on page 86, and this is all the way at 65E, which is page... Goodness. Like page 15. So this quote that we read ages ago now has more brightness to it, has more significance to it, has more meaning to it because of this revision we're doing, because of the work that we've been doing. And it's a fantastic way of bringing it all together. So we're doing the dialectic, but we can also look for the structure of the dialectic in the text. It's probably written this way. Hey, you're learning the dialectic? Apply it to the text. You might discover some things that Socrates is leaving us to discover. So, what's that quote? So, self-justice, beauty, and the good, those are our self terms. And the ousia in selves, so there's the cognitive function that can grasp nous, of the same nature of beauty. That was Gabe's question earlier today, we started with. Maybe beauty itself has the same nature as the eye of the soul. But where are they? In being. That's what we're using to define what dianoia is. It's not about becoming, not the physical world or opinions or lovers of fighting or lovers of contention or anti-logos, what we might say haters today, who think that they're smart because they get all the views and the clicks because they're anti-logosing. They're shutting people down. They're not creating the logos. They're not creating a dialectic and creating a myth and sharing it. They're just shutting down people who are doing the work. But they feel superior. That's not courage, by the way. That's the opposite. That's following their feelings and not the logos. Okay? But what makes it different? It's in being. They're contemplated, right? Gabe's point, it's better to find questions because it creates the conditions for meditation that can turn into contemplation. Specifically, if you're meditating on one of those things in ousia or being, because they are knowable. They are the knowable things. Doesn't happen through your body, but if you prepare yourself, there's our education and nurture, through what? Most accurately dianoiaing. So how do we most accurately dianoia? Maybe the dialectic. It's a puzzle. Where is it? Each self-investigated. Oh, by the way, what do we do in a dialectic? We investigate a self. What if this self exists, and what if it doesn't? And we make it into a myth. What if Batman became the Green Lantern, and what if he didn't? You know, it's fun. Okay? How do we get there? We use dianoia to each of the selves that we investigate. That's a kind of preparation. Those people will approach the closest to nous. There's our nous. There's our knowability. Right? The other day, YouTube recommended me a talk between Richard Dawkins, the famous atheist who wrote the book The God Delusion, and Ricky Gervais, a once great comedian. I used to love his stuff. Yes, die before you die, so to speak. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we were saying, hey, by the way, if you can pull this stunt off through dianoia, not through, a near-death experience because you knocked yourself on the head, or not through drugs. Or I'm not saying that drugs aren't a way of triggering it, but if you have dianoia with you in your back pocket, you might be able to make sense of things. You might be able to recognize your problems that you couldn't realize otherwise. It might diminish the effect of your problems. Right. This kind of, yes, as Socrates says, philosophy is the practice of death. So all the way back at the start. Preparing, here we go. All the way back at, let's bring up the text. Page 18, we have Socrates saying, this is his doctrine. This purification is to separate the soul from the body as far as possible. Fits with that quote. We can't get noose through the body. And accustomed herself, so there's our nurturing, to gather herself together from all quarters. How do we do that? Yes. Well, do that and nothing is needed, even this. You might have, it might be innate. Like if you've really accustomed yourself to gather yourself together from all quarters and to what? Collect self by self. That sounds like the start of the dialectic, by the way. Self according to self. Out of the body, and to dwell alone by self, as far as able, both now and in the future. So those are the 5 steps of his yoga in that one section. Now we would say that's a rubbish yoga. It doesn't tell you how to do it, doesn't give you the instructions, doesn't give you the steps. But we know he's not baby feeding us. He's saying you're going to have to find what all these things are yourself by unpacking the text, developing questions, pulling out the key terms, going through it and then going back to the start and see if it comes to light again for you in a new way. But here are the steps. Number 1, separate the soul from the body as far as possible. Number 2, accustom yourself to gather the soul together from all quarters. Number 3, collect self by self while out of the body. Ooh. Number 4, to dwell alone by self as far as able. Number 5, both now and in the future. And then conclusion, that's being liberated by metaphorical chains of the body, which is a theme. Yes, this liberation and separation of the soul from the body, that's called death. Bringing back what Socrates said earlier. Yes, then those who practice philosophy in the right way are always most eager to liberate self, and this liberation and separation of the soul from the body is the self-study or exercise of the philosophers. Therefore, in reality, those who practice philosophy correctly are studying to die. They fear death least. They are desirous to have their soul self by self, like not commingled with the body, and all their life they yearn for phronesis. So this is where our question of phronesis comes in. What the heck is phronesis that we yearn for? It's something to do with being out of the body, but it's also we are truly a lover of phronesis. So philosophy is the lover of the virtue of wisdom, using the logos to guide your reasoning part of the soul. But what we really are a lover of is phronesis, when we can pull this stunt off. So philosophy, lover of wisdom, which is our training and nurture, like courage and the other virtues, the 4, what are they? Temperance, courage, wisdom, justice. We are really a philophronesis. Philosophia becomes philophronesis. That's one of our puzzles. How do we make that jump from the nurturing and practice and education of our virtues to actually getting there and having this thing called phronesis? So this is all the way back at page 17. So all of these things together, we are inferring. Right. Socrates has done. And to become a philosopher, so we can even say that there is a progression. If we've gone through this before, but it's worth going through again. If we have, where's my pen? If our soul has 3 parts, like a snowman, this is our desire part. This is the biggest. Let's make the snowman a little bit better. Let's do this. Should be. There we go. There's our soul, like a snowman. If the biggest part of our soul is our desires, this is the part that wants to eat all the cakes, or kiss all the girlies, or drink all the beer. We also have our outward moving. Outward. This is the part that wants you to do things, that decided to tune into this podcast today, to join me in the chat and Twitch, to do activities. And we have our planning or reasoning part of the soul. This is the smallest. Part of the soul. And also, we've noticed there's a triad. We look for triads as we go. These are our skill trees. We look for 2s, we look for 3s. Might be worth recognizing it's a 3, so it goes into our 3 skill tree. Oh, by the way, there are 3 virtues, right? Temperance, courage, and wisdom. Can this 3 on our pattern skill tree help us better understand this? Maybe. You rub the 2 self-er terms together and see if it brings an insight. He did talk about, hey, people think they're temperance, they have sound-mindedness, if they master some desires to be mastered by others. They master their drinking problem so they can become a better gambler. But that's vice, actually. So vice isn't the absence of temperance, it's kind of the shadow version. You have mastered some desires, but you're ruled by your desires. You're not ruled by this part of your soul. So we're understanding the vices. Likewise, we need some power and courage to move in the world, to motivate us, inspire us, but also wisdom. So if we have these parts, we can have people who live their lives. So if there are a snowman arranged like this, then their desires are ruling. Or a snowman arranged like this, then their outwardly moving parts are ruling. They're not a balanced snowman. Look how weird these snowmen look. Look at that. What a mess. What a mess these snowmen are. Look at his legs in the middle. Look at this guy upside down. So, there's a name in Greek for each of those people. The people who are motivated by the desires are a philo, which means lover, of course, lover of riches. Lover of soggy tomatoes. Philosomatos. No, that's lover of a body. Philocrematos. Cremated tomatoes. Philokrimetos, Socrates says, this is a key word from the text, lover of riches. Someone who's motivated by this, but this is this one. Philokrimetos. Riches. Lover of riches. Someone who's motivated by this part of the soul, this guy here, is a philotimos. The timocratic man is, or timocracy, is in the Republic. Philotimos. This is a lover of fame. Those people who want to be famous. But we want to be this kind of a snowman, happy snowman. And that makes us a philo-math thesis. We do a thesis on maths, which is a way of remembering lover of learning. Lover of learning. But our question is, if we become a lover of learning, we're going to get teachers, at schools and things. Ain't no Socrates running about our schools. They killed him. They killed the last one. Right. So aligning with the Holy Trinity to become whole one, undivided from within, results in illumination. Right. So we have to be careful that we don't sneak in opinions or beliefs from other traditions. So you can say maybe holy triad, even I'd be careful with the word holy. So if you say this is a balance, that balance, by the way, temperance. To do it even though these feel more true, courage. To be in the text learning the art of the Logos, wisdom. So, we're in trouble here. We don't want to love learning physics. So our question is, how do we go from a philomathesis to a philosophia? S-O-P-H-I-A. Philosophy. So what is wisdom especially? So we need wisdom to come into our love of learning to go to philosophia. So what's wisdom? The Logos. What's the Logos about? Being. So this has to be the Logos to being. This is where we were in the text. Yeah, good. Because Socrates said, I'm going to show how I got into philosophy because I loved learning, but all of the explanation of causes, keyword causes, were in the world of becoming, physical causes. Why are you sitting in prison? Because I got bones and sinews. Socrates says that's rubbish. If my mind didn't think about what's most good to determine what's best and most just and most beautiful, those physical causes, my bones and my sinews, my backside, would be moving my butt somewhere else. You can't just say the causes are physical, because I've got a mind that looks at what's good, to determines what's best, most just and most beautiful. Otherwise, my bones and sinews would be boning and sinewing somewhere else. I wouldn't be sitting here. This was Socrates' second search for cause. Second, his first search for causes led him to teachers who were interested in physical, like, schools nowadays. Search, S-E-A-R, search for causes. He liked one teacher, Anaxagoras, because he mentioned, mind is a cause, but he didn't really get into the mind. He fell into physical causes very quickly. So, We want to understand what makes this interesting. Yes, if you're in the physical world, you'd be limited to belief and illusions. Yes, because the things that are knowable are mind, good, best, just, beautiful. These are all what? Socrates didn't know it at the time, but these are all selfer terms. What are selfer terms? Terms of the self logos. What makes it the self logos? That it is in the realm of being. Socrates, when he was a young student, was interested in being. Because just itself exists in being. You can't see a just thing. You can see an adjective, a just person acting just. You never see beauty itself. You only see a beautiful thing as an adjective. You don't see the beautiful, only a beautiful. So this is his second search for causes. He said, I'm going to tell you what I did. You have to pull out why it worked. Why it allowed me to go from a philomathesis into a philosophia. Because now our nurturing, our training, our education, our practice, our habit, our repetition is now selfer terms of the self logos in being. Now he's into. So this can also help us understand what the virtue of wisdom might be, because he calls this philosophy. We actually call this, from our dialectic we did a moment ago. Look. Oops. Selfer terms in the realm of being. We call that the art of the logos. So he got into philosophy, but like he said, by the way, that's a kind of practice. We want to actually turn all this training, this art of the logos, this philosophy, lover of learning actually directed towards being and the self logos. We want to upgrade that to plus something equals what we really are. And this was a philophronesis. Philophronesis. What do we have to add to our work to get this? That's been a question. So we can have a nice triad. Lover of learning, lover of wisdom, and these two go together to reach the top, the goal, phronesis. Now, there's a word for this called the hyparxis. Socrates gave us that word in the text. He said, hey, all of these things, beauty itself, being itself, justice itself, equality itself, has a hyparxis in self-ousia. So if we realize this, that learning has to go into wisdom, and if you take those two together, you can reach this thing that we want. Maybe we can use this to gain insight. So if we notice a pattern in one area, apply it to other areas. It will bring new light to them. So maybe we can do the same thing with maybe temperance and courage can be put in a triangle too, with wisdom at the top, maybe. I don't know. Try it out. If it's yours, you can play. So, philophronesis. That's what we really are. That's what we saw in the text just then. Okay. And also, our translator uses the word mindfulness. Here we go. Here's the text. Right, if you are not a philosopher, you'll be a lover of the body. That's our lover of soggy tomatoes, because our body is just a soggy tomato compared to the soul. Philosomatos. That will make you, to some degree, a lover of riches, philokrimatos, or a lover of honors, philotimos. One or both of these, if you're a lover of the body. So this is everyone who's not a lover of learning, or philosopher, or phronesis. The many. Okay, a true philosopher realizes he won't encounter pure phronesis anywhere else other than out of the body. So we are truly a lover of phronesis. That's where we were last time. And then he talked about that being by the way, what is phronesis? It's the only valid currency for which all of these virtues must be exchanged. Phronesis. So being, what we study with wisdom, virile, the power of courage, the virtue of sound-mindedness or temperance, and the word is justice, dikaios. These four virtues are true virtue when they're united with phronesis. Otherwise, they're just a shadow. Then he says, temperance, justice, virility, and self-phronesis is a rite of initiation. So to upgrade that virtue of wisdom to phronesis is an initiation. And if you are uninitiated and unaccomplished in your purpose, so one of our questions is, what's our purpose? We're kind of piecing that together now. If we do that, when we reach the afterlife or the next dimension, we will be in the mud. The word is mud, or barbarous bog. But if we arrive there having been A, purified, and B, perfected, we will dwell with the gods. So that's why they say, many are the staff bearers, few are the actual mystics. And these are those who have practiced philosophy correctly. This is my defense of philosophy, and therefore I've been reasonably led to believe that there in the next incarnation, I will find good masters and good friends. But the many don't trust this. Of course, Socrates says, hey, by the way, you can't just trust, you have to have a good reason, dianoia, nous, and phronesis. So he's using the word trust, but we know that he's been reasonably led to that belief and trust. So this is my defense of philosophy. I hope it's been more persuasive than I was with the jury who are killing me for doing this. Right, so being is just ask and allow what is already part of self to gracefully align you with what you're asked for. No need for meaningless thoughts. The opposite. It's the directing your thoughts or discerning the thoughts. The loudest thoughts will be those that maintain your problem. The inner critic, we sometimes call it. But you're right, there is a kind of communication we can open with the daemon, who speaks kind of quieter. This is our inner guide. So we can ask the daemon, but we have to learn through some sort of mastery of an art. That's what we're doing here, through causes. What's the cause of these inner criticisms? And how can I discern that from the voice of the daemon, my appointed spiritual guide? That's where we were here. We were all appointed a spiritual guide. We are appointed a daemon to each soul, allotted to us while living. It tries to lead us to that place. So it's using your thoughts well. You can't not think, but it's aligning your thoughts to the logos, discovering the logos, practicing that. So if somebody comes along and says, you can't do that, you're not good enough, just believe and Jesus will take the wheel, then you have to unpack who convinced you of that. Because Socrates is saying, no, it's a training, it's a practice. It's playing a game. In fact, it's the human game. It's the archetype for all games and movies, by the way. So if somebody's saying, see, grace is one of those Christian words that means if there is no logos, if there is no art of the logos, if there is no dianoia, if there's no nous, you are at the whim of your leaders. Now, this is why fascists use the word hope a lot. Politicians, they know that the people who, like, we don't have Socrates. This is something new. It's not going to feel right because it's not common. People who claim to be wise, especially our parents, will say, oh, there's no understanding. Just trust me. Just believe me. Have hope. So politicians will say hope. No, we're not doing that. We're perfecting our reasoning, uncovering a higher dimension of reasoning. Right. Other animals don't seem, well, maybe not just humans, anybody who's developed the level of language. Number one, the self-logos language. Number two, the interest in using that language and intellect to reflect on ourselves. To three, reach our highest excellence. So if you are able to separate your soul from the body and go to a different planet in a different solar system, and you encounter intelligent life forms, you'd probably ask the same question. Who's reading the Phaedo? Who's mastering the art of the logos? Who's into Socrates over here? So this is why we need power, courage, virility, he calls it. Because it can be difficult to go against and not be at the whims of fate. But ultimately, there does seem to be an upgrade into a kind of flow state where you have become aware of your highest aspects of reality, and you've done all the work of the art of the logos and the dialectic. So you're not just like using your experiences to confirm your prejudices or your religious upbringing. In which case, there's a kind of excellence. Well, there are levels of excellence, like a flow state. And of course, there are levels of sharing in the logos, aligning yourself with the logos. So it's kind of a tricky question. You don't want to say, oh, you just trust, or you just have faith, or you just have hope, or just wait for the hand of God to touch you, and that's the only way you can get salvation. That's what the Christians think grace is, the grace of God. But Socrates is saying, no, it's the opposite. There is no escape from your problems unless there is no escape from yourself or from vice, except by becoming as good and phronesis as possible. Good is in the realm of being or beyond. So you have to, number one, reach the realm of being. That requires the art of the logos and dianoia. That upgrades to nous. Not only that, for phronesis, you have to have developed the practice and habit of the virtues, so your virtues can upgrade with that experience. But not only that, he's not saying the self-good or the experience of good. He is saying the good. So one of the puzzles in philosophy is there is a realm even beyond being. This is what Socrates said in his search for causes. He said, look, the causes, this Anaxagoras guy said mind is a cause. I like that. But he didn't really stay in the realm of causes. And also, he didn't ask the other question. If we have these causes in mind, that like if this world is caused by mind, there must be a intelligence, a mind, that has decided it's more just and more beautiful to do for the world to be the way it is. If it is through mind that the cosmos is ordered, the mind is the cause of it all, it must arrange each and everything in the best way that it should be in. In other words, out of this reasoning or logos, what is most excellent or best? And I must have a knowledge of what's best and what's inferior. And it must be necessary. So another cause in mind is it must be necessary for the world to be the way it is. So all of these things, best, excellent, necessary, just. These are all causes. So we've got a whole list of causes that can't exist in the physical world, but only in mind. And Anaxagoras didn't get into that. We are. That's philosophy. Justice, excellence, necessity, beauty. What is the best for each self and the common good? So there's the idea of the good. And by the way, yeah, so he said, if I did not think it was more just or more beautiful to do something else, my bones, my physical causes would be doing something else. He also missed the mark on another level. Number one. Okay, so you got to know if you want to know the cause of things, this is his second search of cause, taking him from a lover of learning to a lover of wisdom. You need the good, you need justice, you need all those things that we just mentioned. But also there is a daemonic force. There's a power by which, there's a certain power which keeps things together. So there's something that keeps the causes being causes, keeps the world to be the way it is. And there's a daemonic force. There's this other force of the daemon that's guiding our souls towards our highest destiny. That has to be accounted for, because we all have that. Socrates was very familiar with his daemon. And also, the other thing, they were not able to discern why the cause is one thing, whereas the good, without which a cause would never be a cause, is another. So now we've got a whole bunch of causes. Mind, what's best, what's most just, what's most excellent. There's a power that holds everything together that has to be there. And there also has to be these daemons, that's a cause. So there's a whole bunch of causes. So what do we do in philosophy when we see a whole bunch of things? What's the cause of the many? The many beautiful things. What's the cause of that? Beauty itself. Do a dialectic on beauty itself. What's the cause of causes? Socrates realized they were dropping the ball. So if all of the causes, beauty itself, justice itself, mind itself, maybe even the daemon, exist in being, there has to be another dimension beyond being. That's the conditions or cause for causes. Now in philosophy, we call that the one self or the good self. Now it's not, it's hinted at in this text. But at the end, Socrates says, look, what we need to do is, let's go back down to right where we are. We need this phronesis, which requires our education and our nurture, requires the art of the logos and the virtues. Those two things come together in this phronesis, state of being. But we also need the good. So even when we do reach that realm of being, beyond beliefs, yes, beyond beliefs. So we start with trust or a kind of belief in Socrates, and then we play this game of pulling out the key terms, the self terms, weaving them together with the dialectic. That gives us an understanding which is beyond belief of the realm of being. That's called dianoia. That opens the door for the direct experience of your object. I've got a quote for that as well. This one here. When we live, we'll be closest to knowing when we neither associate nor commune with the body more than is necessary. Only eat the cakes you have to. We must purify ourselves from it until the divine self should liberate us. And thus being purified by having been liberated from the phronesis of the body, the fake version, the vice version of the true virtue, we will be likely be with such a kind, and through ourselves we shall know all that is pure. this is likely to be the truth. And he's been talking about we want to behold the unopinable. It's beyond opinion. She who follows the logos and achieves a calm from her emotions will always commune in the true and the divine and behold the unopinable. And if you nurture yourself by this and you live in this way as long as you live, that when you come to die, you will be with that which is akin to such a kind, and so escape from human ills. The Hindus might call escape the cycles of death and rebirth. What do we want to do? Achieve communion with the divine company of the pure and uniform. It's for the sake of these beings that one who loves learning has temperance and courage and justice, is orderly, virile, in a just way. Okay? We want to deliver ourselves from the pleasures and pains of the body, because that will imprison yourself again, and you'll be laboring in vain, like the myth of Penelope, who spends her day weaving and then spends her night undoing her weaving and just being caught in a loop. So this is the practice. Do this always. Don't get wrapped up in pleasures and pains of the body and self-imprisonment. That, by the way, the reason is the excessive pleasure and pain towards something, you'll be led to believe this experience that you're feeling excessively must be most clear and real. That's interesting. This is a key term, most clear and real. That's to do with it. We seek what's real. We want to be in a state of clarity. And if you get wrapped up in pleasure and pain, it nails the soul to the body. The soul of a true philosopher thinks that her deliverance must not be opposed, and keeps away from pleasures and pains and desires and fears. By the way, those 4 pleasures, pains, desires, and fears is a point to the Republic, because those are the 4 words mentioned in courage in the Republic. So we have to go into the Republic next. Self-imprisonment is the greatest assistant of your own imprisonment. So don't spend your life clinging to the body. That's imprisonment, just like Socrates is in prison. What does philosophy do? Lovers of learning recognizes that when philosophy takes hold, okay, so this is our transition from lover of learning, philomathesis, to philosophia. This is what our journey at the end. Our movement from, where is it? Here. From lover of learning, by being a snowman who's upright, to a philosophy. And then the last stage is phronesis. So, when philosophy takes hold, you're in a state of affairs where you're in the body. Like, we're not born philosophers. We're born lovers of, well, the body or learning. And we can train ourselves to love learning. I think we're born loving learning, I suppose. We have to write our snowman and be motivated by learning most. But then when philosophy takes hold, we are imprisoned. Our parents, our school teachers, our society, they're not talking in this way. We've dropped the ball. Socrates passed us the ball and said, look, I'm leaving. This is the most important thing you can do for this life and to solve all human ills and for your soul and your next life. We dropped the ball. So when philosophy takes hold, we will be in this state of affairs, self-imprisoned. And what does philosophy do? She gently encourages the soul, tries to free the soul by revealing to the soul that searching through the eyes is full of deceit. And the same is the case for the ears and the other senses. And philosophy persuades her to withdraw from these as far as she is not compelled. Summons her to gather together and collect self by self. Same expression that he's been using all the way through. Gathering together and collect self by self, whatever that means. To trust only self and no other than the self, and any one of the real beings self by self. Get into the realm of being and the self, which is maybe beyond. That you can use nous to intellect self according to self. So the more that you're like the realm of being, the more you can apprehend it with this nous. This as what's real. So we talked about earlier, the problem with pleasures and pains, you think it's most real and most clear. This is what's real. Being in the self. The self, beyond opinions, beliefs, and experiences. This is the only way leading to truth. Things that are sensible and visible are not. But things that the self sees is nous, knowable, and unseen with the eyes. So this is Socrates' search for his second causes. And that's what he gave us his anecdote, so we had to pull out the meaning, which we're doing now in our reflection. So that we can have what we need to go into the next realm and be guided by our daemon. And then he said, okay, I've done all this. I'm passing it on to you. As we've experienced in the last 2,500 years, if we don't pick it up, we will have war and discord. And like literally, he said it. And we experienced it. He hit the mark. He was able to see everything that would follow. War. Where was it? No, see, this is not what I want. Yeah, put it in brackets. Okay, maybe wars. No. Here we go. Wars arise through the acquisitions of the possessions for the sake of the body, because you are enslaved to its care. Okay, so if you don't become a philosopher, you become lover of the body, and that will give us nothing other than war, civil discord, and battles, being enslaved to its care, and giving us no time for philosophy. But worst of all, even if you do have time for philosophy, your body comes clamoring in, pouring in, and drives you out of your mind. If we want to get into a pure state, we have to be liberated so we can behold. But that's the root word of the word idea, the ideas, mistranslated in our current schools as forms. They're not forms, they're ways of beholding reality. The self-realities with the self-soul are only when we can be liberated from the body. So he predicted what's going to happen. Our war, civil discord, and battles. It can only be known with noesis out of the body. We have to repeat this doctrine to each other and believe it if we are true lovers of learning. So he's saying, repeat this. This podcast is long. I try and do this every day. We have a Discord where we can repeat this. We go back over it. We repeat the dialectic. This is a training. This kind of repetition of Socrates' doctrine is what should be our starting object of belief. Because we start here. In the physical world, we can only see physical things when we start as humans. But then we can come across Socrates. He can show us, hey, look, this is what I've experienced. This is why it's rational. I can show you that I can define my doctrine of philosophy and demonstrate it artfully to help my friends. I can talk about what it's like. I mentioned earlier, I saw YouTube recommended a group forum, Richard Dawkins talking to Ricky Gervais. And very popular, a lot of likes on YouTube, a lot of people there and everyone clapping and laughing. And I liked Ricky Gervais's early stuff. And when I was before I got into philosophy, I liked Richard Dawkins because he is anti-false beliefs. He's atheist in that he recognizes there is an irrationality behind most religions, all religions. We have to go beyond blind obedience to manipulative people or just belief. We have to go beyond belief to at least scientific understanding. He gets stuck there though. Same thing with Ricky Gervais. He got stuck. But why? He doesn't have the art of the logos. He couldn't purify himself from his problems. Anyway, one of the great things they kept repeating is, we don't know what happens when we die. Therefore, it's more rational to reject a realm of the divine. Well, that's not the case if we read the Phaedo. Literally, it's what we are supposed to do. And it's the true practice of philosophy. Now, the first stuff, yeah, of course, reject false beliefs. So faith means to believe that which can't be proven or is disproven. We know the world is not 5,000 years old. We know that people are preying on faith to manipulate and abuse and steal money from people who are not told about the logos. Those things are bad objectively, but the argument we don't know or we cannot know is false. So hopefully someone will meet Richard Dawkins and Ricky Gervais and say, hey, by the way, have you read the Phaedo? Like the most recent translation with the actual Greek, not the bastardized version with the false words or the missing words. It might open your eyes. If they're into it. Maybe they're comfortable with their riches and their fame, who knows? But we start by learning. Of course, we upgrade from learning philomathesis to philosophia. So what should we be learning? Socrates gave us what we should be learning. This doctrine. That's what we repeat. That's what we believe. Because that makes us a right philomathesis. So this is why we read. Why we have to start by trusting it. Trusting the key terms. That, hey, it's going to work out if we do the dialectic. It's going to lead us to the outer logos. We start there. Now, of course, we don't finish there. Socrates makes that point very clear. This is the cause of the worst problems. If you just trust him, someone's going to come along and use a myth that's familiar. It's going to sound true. It's probably going to be related to your religious mythology. Oh, by the way, there is no realm of being, or you can't know it. You're just going to go to hell, or only Jesus can know it, or you're a sinner, or Richard Dawkins and Ricky Gervais. The soul is just a byproduct of the body. When we die, there's nothing. This was Simius's argument. It's a byproduct of the physical. It's like harmony, a byproduct of the physical guitar. There's a lyre up there in the corner. So yeah, those two were very convincing. But if you've trusted Socrates and then you come across Dawkins and Gervais who are using something that sounds probable or feels familiar, you might end up distrusting the logos or hating it. Socrates says this is the greatest defect of the soul that we have to be on guard against. How do you spell despise? Okay. Defect. Here we go. Page 54. There is no greater defect than anyone can suffer than to hate the logos. But hating the logos comes out of the same condition. If you trust the logos without using the art, just as if you trust humans without using the art to judge them, you think they are truthful and sound and trustworthy, but they turn out to be base and untrustworthy, base in the bad sense. especially if they're your nearest and dearest friends or family. After many blows of trusting people without judging them, you'll end up hating all people. Similar to the logos. If you trust the logos, because everyone's between the extremes. Everyone is somewhere between this ladder we were talking about. Somewhere between the purification of your problems and the perfection towards destiny. Everyone's going to be somewhere up here and somewhere here. Someone who's a real jerk's probably going to be, especially if they've got power or fame or wealth to play out their problems, probably going to be quite up here. But hey, even gurus, like famously, the gurus who get there without the art of the logos, like in Buddhism or Taoism stuff, they're famously depicted as reaching a high state, but still with their problem. So there's something like here. They're not purified. So we have the archetypes of the pervy sage, like Goku and Naruto's spiritual masters, or the drunken master, depicted carrying his wine gourd. Okay, Socrates is saying everyone is somewhere between the extremes of the very worthless and the very beneficial. Just like most dogs are between very, very tiny and very, very big. So, if you trust the logos as being true without the art of the logos, then shortly after someone comes along and convinces you by contradicting the logos, there's their anti-logos people, the haters, or the people who just think they're smart because they contradict everyone. Like those memes, prove me wrong, or Ben Shapiro, or anybody on mainstream news networks. And they think that they are the wisest because they are the ones who have thoroughly understood, because they understand that there's nothing sound and stable in reality, and there's no logos, and there's no art. There's no rules or paradigm objectively understandable to make it an art. These people will trick you, and if you just trust this stuff without the art, no, we have to start by trusting. That's this doctrine. The true lover of learning. But you have to go beyond that to the art. Otherwise, these people will come in and contradict it, and then you'll be led to believe that, that there is no logos, there is no reality, and there is no art. Because you're shifting the cause away from your lack of the art to the logos itself. And you will spend the rest of your life hating and reviling the logos, and you will become deprived of the truth of beings and knowledge. This is the condition we have to guard against. This is the most dangerous conviction and the condition that there is nothing sound in the logos. Don't fall into that trap. We have to therefore be brave and eagerly pursue developing our art of the logos, the most important thing. And now he did give us the best way of philomethesis, lovers of learning, this doctrine. Repeat it, go through it, share it with your friends, tell your co-workers, tell your family, tell your teachers. Repeat it all the time. But then you have to also go into the art of the logos. Maintain a philosophical attitude, because those who have a contentious, there's our philonikos, haters, lovers of contention. Philos Nikos right here. Yeah, I've met these people who think they're smart and are not philosophers. Most of them are assholes. They're jerks. They just want to fight or debate. Even these like Dawkins characters, or who's the other scientist who's always on TV? Whenever he's contradicted, he gets mad. Okay, but they're also, and this is the other puzzle, people who are the haters or the lovers or philonikos, debate bros or fighters or whatever, or anti-logos people, they don't know whether the logos under discussion, the topic they're talking about, can maintain this. So that's the opposite. If we don't have the art of the logos, we won't have this state of self that will tell us whether or not the logos can maintain it. So it's a kind of standard. Should we be talking about this? Is this logos good, and is it worth talking about? So here is the different kinds of excellences that we've been talking about today. There is a kind of excellence where you're in a flow state. To act effortlessly in line with the logos. Well, no. The expression is from the ideal of the samurai. To act without thought or planning in the most appropriate way for the circumstances with the full force of your being. What we would call being in the zone or being in flow. Now there's another state beyond that, whether you know whether or not you should be in the situation to begin with. Should you be using your flow state to sink 3-pointers, or should you be doing something else? This might be a higher state. So those don't have it. But if we have this thing here, a state of self, which is phronesis and ousia together, we can judge whether or not the logos under discussion is going to be good based on whether or not it maintains phronesis and ousia. That was the first and only time it's mentioned in the text, so it's probably important. Phronotin ousian. Okay. Oh, and by the way, look at the greedy, it's not selfish, greedy way I use the logos. It's for me. I'm not like these people who think they're wise if they can persuade people. If what I say is true, it will persuade in a beautiful way on its own. But I want myself to thoroughly believe that what I'm saying is true. So I want to pass on something, the art of the logos, that is the opposite of a bee. A bee leaves a sting when it dies. It stings you and it dies. I'm doing the opposite. What is that? The art of the logos. That can take us from, well, we start with truly learning, repeating this doctrine. Then we get into the second search of causes that Socrates had to do on his own. Thankfully, we have him leaving behind something to help us. Socrates talked about how he searched for causes because there weren't anyone talking in this way at his time. But then also we have to go from develop through the art of the logos, can develop into the experience of the realm of being, of nous, giving us phronesis. That's what we really love. As soon as you start tasting that there is an experience beyond your physical senses, the third eye, as Sogas is saying, I mentioned earlier, then we really love that. Not just having it as a one-off, but understanding it, dianoia, integrating it, the virtues, the dialectic, using it at all times to benefit ourselves and others, art of the logos, giving us a certain state of self. State was a state this is where he calls it a state. Okay, if you truly investigate, okay, if you're dragged about by your physical perceptions or the body, you'll wander around dizzy and confused as if you were drunk. But if you investigate self according to self, that's the first category of the dialectic, by the way. She passes into that realm that is pure and eternal and deathless. So these are some key terms to pull out for that dialectic on beauty we did before. Remember, we did eternal, but we can go back here and we can say, hey, where's that dialectic on being? Here. This is if being exists, dialectic on being. Our 4 categories, if being exists, self by self, eternal. We can also say pure. Let's add it. You can say, let's get purple. Pure. This is a key term from the text we're pulling out and putting it into our structure. This is how you play the game. And deathless. So we've got 2 more terms to go into our dialectic. And I hope you are playing along at home. Why? Okay. So pure, eternal, and deathless, those are the 3. You will remain in that same way, always akin with self. So this might be that state that you're always in, that you can say, hey, is this conversation maintaining the state of phronesis and ousia? You will become that. Oh, we're training our soul to become that. And whenever she arises into self, according to self, and goes out, you sit. So if you can do that, if you can leave your body and be in that state of self, in self, according to self, you will cease from your wandering, as though you were confused and dizzy and drunk, and also causing all your problems and human ills. And you will always remain according to the same, in the same way, about those beings, insofar as she always remains in contact with such beings. You have that contact. You've pulled off the experience, the separating of the body, self from the body, by being like it, purifying yourself to be most like it, not wandering around by your body, dizzy and drunk and confused. You are becoming more pure and eternal and deathless yourself. You can remain in contact. That's fascinating.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
So this is the effortless state we'll be talking about. You've transitioned, you've upgraded, you've leveled up from the virtues that we do through effort and practice and learning the art of the logos. We start by repeating the doctrine. That's true learning. Trusting it, repeating it, and then we have to develop the art of the logos. If we don't, we'll end up hating reason itself and maybe people too. The villain's arc. But then we want to actually have that experience, separate from the body, reach that realm, pass into that realm, a higher dimension. Wow. That's pure and deathless and eternal, and we can remain in contact with it. There must be something of our nature that's always there. This state of self is called phronesis. And CB says, what you say is beautifully said, and true. So Socrates said, hey, it's going to be naturally beautiful and persuasive. And it was. To CBs, who's not at that level. But he wants it for himself. So now we've got an understanding of phronesis. It's being in contact with the beings, staying in that state of self. It's a certain state of self. Again, just from the text, not my opinions, nothing from my family or culture or religion or TV shows saying any of this. It's all from Socrates. That's the game, to read without bringing in your personal beliefs or interpretations. But my goodness, isn't it great? Isn't it fun? Freaking works too. Oh, we trust that it works until we can pull this off. So he's giving us something to solve our next puzzle, which was what? We had a puzzle. What the heck is, so we've got this right side up snowman. So one of our questions was, well, if we're right side up, we're motivated not by lover of riches, not by lover of fames, like these upside down, weirdly arranged mutant snowmen. So if you see someone who's not a lover of learning, you'll call them a mutant snowman, and you'll point and you'll flick their nose and you'll say, I'm a bunny and I'm going to eat your nose because it's a carrot. You're an upside down snowman. Okay? So our question was, what is a lover of learning? A proper lover of learning, because it's not about physics, or maybe secondarily you can understand physics better when you see the paradigm. We saw it. Repeating that doctrine, learning that doctrine, repeating it often, especially in the Discord or in the chat. Okay, but can't stay there. We can't stay at belief because, like he said, the anti-logos haters, the lovers of fighting, the philonikoses, they're going to start pulling out their crap and they're going to say things that appeal, and they're going to use fear tactics probably, and they might get you to end up hating the logos because, hey, if the leaders in charge are not developing the logos and are talking about hope and faith and belief, then there mustn't be a logos. If my loved ones aren't developing the logos that reaches the realm of nous, so you have a paradigm of excellence that can be understood with the logos, hierarchically with the dialectic, that can be used to be artful and actually benefit people. If my loved ones and the people on TV and all of my loved celebrities aren't doing that, then maybe there is no realm of being for that model. There is no actual understanding, and it's all personal opinions and groupthink. You like the Bulldogs, I like the Broncos, you like the Cowboys, who cares? You're a Muslim, I'm Protestant, who cares? Just, hey, maybe if what makes you right is how persuasive you are, we kill the other team. Yeah, groupthink. That's how our world is ruled, groupthink. Personal opinions based on violence or war or civil discord, the terms from the text that was able to predict our world 2,500 years ago, almost as if, like a doctor can predict how the person's going to act. If the doctor has a patient who's an alcoholic, he won't prescribe that certain medicine that doesn't mix with alcohol because he can predict what he's going to be. He's seen a lot of alcoholics. He knows the paradigm. He knows what their addiction to alcohol is. So too, Socrates can see through time to diagnose our world right now. And thankfully, in the last 4 or 5 years, we've had a text where we can unpack his words and get what he's passing on for the cure. He can diagnose our world, but he can also, like someone with an art, can prescribe the remedy. That's what he's doing now. What's the remedy? True learning. Repeat this doctrine that we've only had in the last 5 years. Literally. So any experts who told you about Socrates or Plato or philosophy, put them on the back burner. Judge them. Where are they at? And where are they stuck? Are they doing philosophical midwifery, which is the art of the dialectic, art of the logos applied to removing the false ideas? Are they actually going from opinions to separating from the body? True lover of learning to philosophy and phronesis. I have never heard a teacher talk about phronesis who's been a philosopher at a college or on YouTube. Okay, we're not blaming them. It's only been available in the last 5 years because of the course of human history. But we can't ignore it to be polite and allow ignorance to flourish the way it's doing for our society, but for you, for your soul. We are here to play, and we can. So, pat them on the head, give them a thumbs up and say, hey, why don't you join our reading group? Or have you ever opened the Phaedo? Or have you seen that there's a free translation with the actual Greek you can read for yourself? That you need to, because all of the key terms aren't in the other books. So literally you can't have played. It's like playing Resident Evil and all of the gems you need to put into special places to open up the passages have been taken out and replaced with, I don't know, rubber duckies. You'd be stuck in the first area. That's humanity. That's the experts or lovers of the body. Okay, so we need to, what is this? This is our first question. He gave us, what is the true lover of learning? Repeating this doctrine. Okay, what do? Don't stay there, because those people who reject an experience of reality, giving you the model of excellence in being, they reject the logos, the understandability. So we wouldn't have, there would be one political party. It wouldn't be, my opinion versus your opinion. Same thing with religion, because the logos is available to everybody. Just like anyone can be a doctor. You don't have to be brown or Mexican or Muslim to be a doctor. Anyone can learn. It's great. Hey, no more having to kill each other. Wouldn't that be nice? Okay, and the use of them together is the art, and the dialectic is the structure. If we don't develop the art of the logos, these people will persuade us, and then we'll end up hating the logos. That's the worst condition of the soul, defect of the soul we have to guard against. So now we can figure out what philosophia is. The art of the logos, a training, a nurturing, a solving the puzzles in this way. And then our final question is, philosophia into philophronesis. What the heck is that? What's phronesis? It's a certain state of the soul that can be joined with ousia. So we had the word phrono to ousian. It can also, it's a state of the self. It can also be a guide to whether or not the logos is worth talking about or not, whether or not it maintains this state. And it's a staying with the realm of being. So there's our model needed for an art, like the model of health. And the logos is tied to it and must exist in it, by the way. So we can artfully use it. So the transition from the art of the logos to the art of the logos with phronesis, from a certain state of the self that we can use to intuitively or directly through our direct state of being or state of self, know whether or not the logos is good or not, and going to maintain that state. Okay? And that requires that, as we're reading the text, it requires that separating from the body. Now, Socrates has said he's done all this. He's done his work. He's mastered the learning in the right way. He's given us his second search for causes that led him into necessarily talking about the causes of being. By the way, he said, when you can get out of this, there's more work to do out of the soul because there is a cause for causes. So there's our next dimension. That ties into the first hypothesis of Parmenides. We do have a playlist on YouTube where we go through the first hypothesis of Parmenides, but that's causes are one thing, but the cause of causes is another. It's another puzzle. So there's more work to do, because when we do escape the cycles of reincarnation, including the punishments and rewards in the afterlife for how we nurtured our soul, then then he says you can meet, whoa, Jesus. Thanks for following, Scavenger. Gave me a fright with that noise. My speakers were on very high. So when we do reach that realm, he said if we do pull all this off, we repeat the doctrine with our friends, our family, our teachers in our Discord if you want to join on YouTube. Talk to your cat if you've got a cat about it. Then you can then start playing the game. We talked about how to do that today, how to pull out the key terms, look for puzzles, arrange them in the dialectic. So all that's needed to open up the direct experience of nous, or separate the soul from the body, which is death. So philosophy is the practice, and art, if we're including the art of dialectic, of death and dying. So if we can pull that off, then we can learn art and guard against the worst condition, hating the logos and never being able to reach truth. He says, and by the way, we can keep that state of phronesis, which can be a guide for us to know whether or not the logos is worth discussing, if it can maintain that state of self of phronesis or phronotin ousia, phronesis and ousia. If we do all that, many of the staff bearers, this is the true form of spirituality. If we do that, this is our proper work, our destiny to master the art of the logos. From lover of learning to lover of wisdom, and then integrating it into our own state of being, philophronesis. Then who cares? What's going to happen? Well, we can escape our fearful fluttering around our body and the visible world while we're alive, which causes us to struggle much and suffer much. And the daemon, which is our guide, will have to use force, maybe problems, maybe nightmares, maybe other illnesses, to guide you away from your doing. So you'll live a better life. But also, when you reach that next realm, you will have fellow travelers and guides. And if you don't, you won't have any. It will suck and you'll just get reincarnated back around again. So there's more work to do. Not work to do, fun, play, the noblest game, the best game, the archetype of all games we're seeing today. So there's some benefit in returning to the higher dimensions of reality with the art of the logos in your back pocket. And phronesis. Our education, phronesis, and our nurture, which is lover of learning, repeating this, lover of philosophy, play the game, do the dialectic, and then when you hit the realm of being, when you separate the soul from your body, integrate it into your virtues, maintain that state of mind, keep doing the logos because that will maintain you. There's our nurture. The art of the logos and our nurture. Thumbs up. So, worth living that way? Sounds like it. What happens if we don't? Struggling, suffering, war, discord, bloodshed, all the problems we're seeing in our world. Experts who don't actually do the opposite of philosophy. People who rule without the art, who think there isn't even an art. So hey, yeah, anything, any vice and tyranny goes. Yay, destroy the world, exploit the people, fascism. Yeah. By the way, as soon as a doctor does that, he will lose his license because we admit there is an art of medicine. You can't exploit your patients. You are specifically to use your knowledge of the ideal, your understanding of the parts, the structuring of the parts in your understanding, to specifically benefit not your ass, the ass of the patient. Benefit. If you don't, you're corrupt, you lose your license. By the way, if our rulers and our leaders and our teachers and our philosophers ain't doing this, they are missing the mark. Socrates diagnosed this 2,500 years ago, and he left us his prescription, which is how to love learning in the right way, how to develop the art of the logos, which is moving into through the second search of causes to wondering about being, and how to turn your art into the logos to the ideal art, which requires also phronesis. How to change your soul and upgrade to exist in a higher dimension and function in an artful way in this life and in eternity. Because if you're going to meet better fellow travelers and leaders, or like we saw at the start of the text, better men and gods than you find here, or fellow leaders and travelers, who are gods, by the way, they are eternal. So you're going to become a god. You're out of the physical, so you're eternal. You've learnt the rules of the game. You've left the game lobby and you're in the real game, the better game. So there's more to go up there. Even now, and by the way, Socrates is doing this, so you don't have to wait till you die, by the way. So he's diagnosed us with his art, and he's left us the cure, the art of the logos. And if you've been following along the series, I think we're about 60 through on YouTube. We've got the playlist, 60 episodes through. Congratulations. Even if you haven't been doing the dialectics, you have been repeating this. You've been doing the right lover of learning. That will be a kind of nurture. Even if you don't pick up the next thing and do the dialectics, it will probably have a beneficial effect on your incarnation. Maybe you'll reincarnate and be more inclined to do the next step, develop the art of the logos. So it's a win. So good for you. True lovers of learning, to repeat this in 60 episodes in. You've probably been repeating it a lot. Okay. Now what? Well, we know a lot about Socrates now. He said the problem comes when we don't judge. If we don't judge people and the logos, we have our problems. And by the way, we have judgment in the afterlife, so we are judged. We can't distrust not only the logos, but the realities. Yes. Oh, so this is a thing. Yeah. So this is where does it start? Right. So one of the things that we can knock us off our journey is if we don't develop the art of the logos and we are thrown into distrust of the logos, as Phaedo does. And so the 4 arguments for the immortality and of the soul and reincarnation. Then Simmias and Cebes shared their personal religious mythology that actually is very similar to ours today. And that threw them into distrust of the Logos. Not just them, everyone except Socrates. Everyone in that room was like, oh, I trusted these reasons, these arguments, this Logos for the immortality of the soul and the necessity for reincarnation. But now I've been thrown, even our narrator, Phaedo, was thrown into distrust of three things. So here's a triad. Take note. The Logos is untrustworthy. Reality, being, is untrustworthy. And them, we were, as judges, we were worthless. It's a triad. This triad, Logos, being, and self, is an archetypal triad. And in fact, these are the three things fundamentally that we believe are inadequate when we get our problem. Their problem was triggered. This is important for us to judge, because Socrates says we need to use the art of the Logos to judge. Like he said, we're always somewhere between most worthless, like a tiny dog is rare, or most ideal. Tall dogs are rare. We're somewhere here. They were following Socrates up through trust, which is good. And they said, hey, the whole book begins with them meeting outside the prison, often every single morning, to talk about the self, until Socrates, they were allowed in. So there's maybe a metaphor, allowed in to meet Socrates himself. So that was good. They were doing the right thing. Lover of learning, trusting Socrates, repeating the doctrine every morning until the last day. So they're climbing this ladder up towards understanding destiny. But then Simmias and Cebes brought in their cultural mythology from their problem, from their upbringing, from where they were born, and their time and place and family and culture. What were the two arguments against it? The soul is a byproduct of the body, like harmony, or we might, the earth wears us down. Being a human wears us down. We might have many reincarnations, but we don't outlive our last jacket. Like our soul outlives many forms of our body, but not our last one, even if there is reincarnation. So the argument of the soul is harmony, or we don't outlive our last jacket. So we are judging them. So they did all right. So they maybe got up to here, but then they were triggered. Triggered. It's a word we use today. Triggered by their problem. And then everyone in the room, including Phaedo and our narrator, who is our narrator, was brought into their problem. And so Socrates is saying this is what is going to happen when you are triggered by your problem. That's why we need to purify ourselves from our false ideas of beauty, while also learning the truth about beauty. Purifying ourselves from our opinions, while learning dianoia and the art of the Logos. It's purification and perfection. It's destiny and fate. And he said it's the same art that can judge health and illness. So it's the same art applied to both. Okay, so we're doing that now. So what happens when we get triggered by our problem? Well, the text says there are three things. We will be thrown into distrust of the Logos, of reality, and us as worthless judges. So what's that? A triad. If you see a triad, make a note. It's probably important. The Logos, reality, and themselves as judges. By the way, this is the first, the second, and the third hypothesis of Parmenides, the three good ones, which are also three states of excellence or spiritual enlightenment stages. The self-logos, that ignore that if that's kind of a teaser for Parmenides. I think I was getting a bit ahead of myself. But we know the self-logos is what we need for the art. Reality is the experience of nous. That is the paradigm that informs the art. And by the way, our question was, what's the cause of even reality? Or who is the one mastering the art of the Logos and reaching reality and integrating both into the learning of phronesis, the state of phronesis? What is that? Because if we reach reality with the art of the Logos, we meet fellow adventurers.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
and leaders. So we keep going. So we can recognize, hey, if you have an inner voice or critic or meet someone who triggers you, that's saying that you can't understand or there is no understanding, they are against the self-logos. Anti-logos people, the experts, Socrates are saying. Anti-logo, haters, people who just trash it, don't build. Okay? They might say, oh, reality is bad. There's hell exists or the devil exists. Or reality is unjust and mean. Look at all this suffering in the world. Or you can't know reality. There's no nous. Like Ricky Gervais and Richard Dawkins. Nobody's actually experienced the afterlife and told us about it. Well, of course they have. It's the Phaedo. Read. I'm not blaming them. It's the culture and stuff. But we want to understand the causes for their ignorance. That's part of having the art. Okay? So there is no understanding. There is no reality, or you are not good enough. You can't understand. You can't know God. You can't go beyond God. Yourself, by the way, if there's a reality that's divine and the self is beyond, you are greater than God. Oh, that's heresy. So anything that says that yourself is, or your self-judging or your self-goals are bad, anything that says your logos or the logos is bad, anything that says the self-reality or your mind is bad, this is a character, that is a signature of this. Because self-logos is it. That's what we're learning. That's what we repeat in our lovers of learning. That's what we master the art of in philosophy. And that's what we integrate into our being in phronesis and take with us to the realm of reality to join our guides, fellow adventurers and guides. By the way, self-reality is the cause of the physical world. It's eternal and pure. It's what we do our dialectics on. And it's the self. When you experience it, it's like, oh, that's me. That's mind. Now, if you have the logos, you can go, hang on a second. It might not be me. It might be a reflection of me or my mind. But what has the mind, or what causes this greatest experience of enlightenment? And that's our ultimate goal, the self. So self-logos, self-reality, the self, these are the things needed. And so anything that slights them, does not recognize them as the most pure, noble, divine. You are noble and divine in your logos, your mind, and yourself. Anything that says otherwise is an indicator of a problem that you have to purify yourself from, and will be causing your fate, your repeating cycles of problems in your life, as it does in the repeating cycles of division and discord and bloodshed in humanity. Same thing, as above, so below. So that's an interesting triad that Socrates gave us that we can use to diagnose. And also, because it's the same art, this can shine light on our problem, anything that is a slight against these two things, but also shine a light on our destiny. Because it's the same art. We see something, we can illuminate both. That's another fun thing about this game. As Socrates says, the same art of medicine can look at health and illness. So too can understanding this as a high triad, a fundamental triad, can shine light on both. Interesting. So what? Well, all of this we can use now to judge Socrates, who says he's done all this and he's giving us the pieces to do it ourselves. He's using it artfully. He's not force feeding it like in college or something. He's giving us what we need to solve it ourselves. So we are pulling it all together and not just defining it, but demonstrating it. Definition and demonstration. Remember? We need both. First category, definition, and then demonstration. How can we demonstrate what we're doing? We can take our definition of our purpose or destiny from the text itself. All questions and answers have been in the text, which is wild that Socrates was able to function this way right before he was killed by the state. How can we demonstrate it? Well, what do we do with an art? We judge. Who should we judge? Well, the best person in the room. That's part of being a philosopher. Shoot for the ideal. Always aim for excellence. Not just a beautiful thing. We want beauty itself. And when we get to beauty itself, we don't want beauty itself. We want all of the beings, justice and goodness. We want the hyparxis, which might be the logos, or self-ousia. We want the best. We want all of it. Hey, we don't just want all of it. We want to integrate it and always have it. Phronesis. We're a lover of phronesis. Socrates says, I'm greedy for the logos because it's so great. Hey, we don't just want phronesis now. We want it forever. Eternity. Whoa, yum, yum, yum. And then even beyond that, we want to take the art of the logos with this state of purification of the soul and phronesis. Take the phronesis, take the art of the logos, our nurture and education, into the next life and keep going. Better fellow adventurers and better masters. So what's all this? Aiming for excellence, or the honorific, which actually is the word self in Greek. The honorific, the highest, the hyparxis. Now, so what? Well, let's demonstrate. We defined it. What are we here to do? Art of the logos. Demonstrate it on who? Pick the best person in the room. Socrates. So let's judge Socrates. Where is Socrates? For all of these things we have put together, does Socrates meet the criteria? Is he able to define the doctrine of philosophy? Is that the first part of the text? Could he demonstrate it in dialectic to benefit his friends? Was he able to divide all of the pieces for true learning, philomethesis, true philosophy, philosophia, and the ultimate goal, phronesis, so that we could ourselves play the game, look for the key terms, structure it in a dialectic way to make it our own, so we can get the art of the logos? And is he synthesizing the whole thing together at the end that we can use to analyze all this again to see it in a new way? Well, let's see. The definition was his doctrine. Yeah, he gave us his doctrine. He said, hey, this, by the way, this definition, this doctrine, you need to repeat. Always. That's true learning. Okay? Then he said, by the way, CBs, we can judge CBs. He was able to give a definition of the logos of learning as remembering. And he used the four parts of the dialectic really nicely. But he wasn't able to demonstrate it. When Simmias says, I don't really follow that, can you break it down for me? He couldn't. Could Socrates, after his definition, did he demonstrate the dialectic by running through four arguments of the soul as being immortal? Because he said, hey, by the way, philosophy is defined as the practice, and now art, of dying and being dead. Well, hang on a second. You need the soul better outlast the body if that's the case. Can you demonstrate that? And can you walk us through the reasoning of that so that we can be benefited? Yes, he was. Now, was he able to not just demonstrate it with his friends, break it down into all the different divisions to create questions, to create key terms that we had to weave together and apply ourselves to, that we would only come to light if we were playing the game, doing this, bringing our mind to match Socrates, if we were playing the game with the same level of integrity and openness and curiosity and wonder? Did he make the ideal video game for us to play? Yes. That's what we've been doing, haven't we, the whole time? And it's been brilliant and beautiful and amazing and maybe even life-changing. So yes, tick, tick, tick. So now we're at, can he synthesize it all together? Can he do this last step? That's where we are. This is his big speech at the end. This weird thing about what the earth looks like from the other dimension. Or an other dimension. There seems to be a few different ones included in the story. So that's where we are. We can't fully judge him unless he's able to pull this off really well. That's where we are in our reading. So that's where we are. We have to, well, so this is kind of not a teaser, a prep. We did go through it last episode, but it was a kind of a higgledy-piggledy mess. And Joe Biden said,
What in the heck are we talking about here?
and he just concluded that,
Jibbity nonsense. Come on, man.
so we have to, of course, read it in the text with the actual terms. So we have a kind of loose bones structure from our last reading, but now we have to pull in the meaning. Why are we going through it? Why is it significant? Well, one reason is this is the last stage of the text. We can recognize the dialectic through the text itself. How artful of him. How beautiful and persuasive of him. So we have to see if this one really, if this thing is as good, because by the way, holy crap, all of these have been perfect. I mean, perfect's the wrong word. Beautiful. Just. Amazing. Convincing. Let's see if this last section meets that standard. Okay. But also, before we read this last thing, we have to judge him as well, because he's saying, hey, after all of that, I wrote the greatest video game 2,500 years before you had World of Warcraft. I wrote the greatest hero story and starred as the greatest hero 2,500 years before Star Wars and Luke Skywalker and Harry Potter. I was able to diagnose your society 2,500 years through time. And I was able to give you a prescription. After all that, here is something else. Here is my conclusion. Now, he talked about all of that leading up to the daemon. So here's a hyparch. Says, by the way, all of this has to be in your daemon, which is your guide. And now you know what he's guiding you towards, what he's guiding you to purify yourself from, what he's guiding yourself to perfect yourself towards, how he's going to even be a guide after you die, and maybe even guide you when you can separate from the body in this life. So that's pretty high up there. By the way, he's in prison because he has a daemon, and he talks about it, so that's curious. And he talks about guiding you all the way to the afterlife. He's gone through learning, to philosophy, to phronesis, to the daemon, to guiding you to the afterlife. Holy crap. But then what next? What happens once you do this? When you escape the cycles of reincarnation? When even in this world, when you can reach that realm and you've got the art of the Logos in your back pocket? What now? Well, now he's going to talk about what the earth looks like, her true nature and size, as it appears to him as someone who can see it in a different way. Now, we have to judge him. Hey, judge the best person in the room. Demonstrate the art of the Logos that we've just defined. Well, I think we can fairly judge him as someone who has noesis and phronesis and the art of the Logos and has pulled this off. And so when he's talking about what the earth looks like, her true nature and size, he is probably talking from direct experience. And it's not a one-off experience. He's probably seen it a lot of times. And not just through grace or drugs or fluke or knocked his head and had a near-death experience. No, he's done it through the art of the Logos. And integrated, and he might still be there if phronesis is a state of self you can maintain. A virtue that doesn't lose its power. Here or in the other places. So we can judge him. He didn't read some crazy book on crystals and whatever. The way that often spirituality is marketed without the art of the Logos. And of course, we've only had this text for 5 years, so we're not attacking anyone personally, but it's important to judge as we will be judged, apparently. Okay? So we can he's probably not blowing smoke, as we say nowadays, when he's talking about the true nature and size of our planet. Holy crap. Okay. I am going to tell you what is the idea of the Earth and the regions of it. And I am speaking so because, I think he says, from my initiation, here we go. Where is it? I am speaking from my understanding of the laws or the logos, the laws of reality, which we can call the logos, and my experience from my initiation, which now we can recognize as noesis and phronesis. And the R. Okay. Oh yeah, he talks, here we go. There are many branches and circuits to lead from here to the next world. What happens? What are they? And is there anything even beyond that? In other words, if there's a fourth dimension, is there a fifth or sixth? These are questions. Because if we all go there, well, is there another? Is there a place beyond the fourth dimension that we can go? I don't know yet. But he is speaking from his sacred rites and his sure signs of the laws, the logos. But there are many branches and circuits which require us to be appointed a daemon. And by the way, if we do this, we will meet with fellow travelers.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
And guides.
You're a wizard, Harry.
In
You're
that
a
next
wizard,
realm.
Harry.
And yeah, so we're going to have to pay attention to what he's saying, because he's probably speaking from direct experience, if not what he is looking at right now. If it's a state he can maintain, that is maintainable. He's going to tell us what the planet looks like, and maybe even use it to describe what he is seeing, because he's not just seeing the physical planet, that's very low. He's also probably going to be talking about the many branches and circuits, the spiritual, like if there are people dying every second, there are probably circuits and conduits connecting our souls to the next realm. And there's probably going to be daemons there. And there's probably going to be doing something when they die. And if there's reincarnation, which we've been talking about, there's probably going to be a journey back. So he's probably going to be talking about a lot of what he can see as the spiritual nature or the soul nature of our planet and the people here. And hopefully what's beyond that, because we want to escape that journey. Yeah, we have souls, and it's important that we experience the realm of being or wherever we go when we die. But are there levels? Are there dimensions? Is there a realm of being beyond the places of judgment and rewards and punishments? Because we don't want to stay in that cycle. Screw that. I'm not coming back as a bee. I'm not even coming back as a human. I'm doing my work now. I mean, that's what I think. Maybe my mind will change when I read the next part of the text. So hopefully he's going to tell us about more of the specifics of that, so we can guide ourselves well, but also, can we look for a way out? In other words, from the fourth dimension to the fifth dimension, or the sixth. And hey, if we meet better travelers and guides, do we have to wait until we cark it? Or can we find those guides in the text, in the next section, and maybe complete even that journey? So if there's the physical world, and then there's the next dimension that we can transition back and forth from in our incarnations, maybe there's a next level up where Socrates is going, which is beyond the cycles of reincarnation, where he meets fellow guides and travelers. But maybe if they're doing something up there, maybe we can keep going and complete that journey. So we've got our three-dimensional world, our fourth dimension through that goes back and forth in reincarnations, the fifth dimension where we meet our guides and fellow adventurers, and wherever they get to, sixth dimension. Let's see if we can get to the sixth dimension. Why? Because that's part of being a philosopher. That's part of being an adventurer.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Seeking the highest. If you've read these books of Socrates, whenever he's given an option of two, he always takes either both or the highest. He usually goes for the highest one. So, the next section has a lot of weight. It should be that last section of the dialectic that's going to make or break the whole book. I mean, everything already has been amazing. So if our hypothesis that this is the ultimate hero story, the ultimate video game, the archetype of the true hero, there's a lot on this next section because he's done really well up to here. Let's see if he can bring it home. But also, can we bring it home? Because for us to judge him, we have to at least match him. Can we raise our mind to the level of Socrates? He said, hey, you're Hercules, I'm Hercules' sidekick. Doesn't matter who's who really, but we're together. We are fellow adventurers. We are akin to Socrates, especially if you come along this far in this video series. So, big states for Socrates, big states for us, and maybe not only can we learn more about the true nature of our planet and the nature of its connection to the fourth dimension, maybe we can even uncover some mysteries to go beyond to the fifth, and maybe beyond even that to the sixth. And hey, if there's a seventh, let's take that one too. So, huge stakes for the text, for Socrates, for the ideal work ever written, for the ideal hero's journey ever written, and maybe even for our seeing and insight. Maybe even let's skip the fourth, maybe skip the fourth and fifth and sixth, let's go to the seventh. So huge stakes, huge significance, and we've judged Socrates that he's not going to be blowing smoke, most likely. It's probably going to be worth, and if it's the last thing he ever says, it's probably going to be of extreme significance. We might only be able to see that significance because of today, because we've done all this. We've gone through the definition, his doctrine, and we hope that would be more convincing. We touched on his demonstrations, how he was able to diagnose and address the problems of others and diagnose our condition of our current world and our current problems. We've gone through putting it all together in the division to piece it all together to see why it's like a video game, like a real game, the best game. So only after going through this is it likely we're going to see the significance of that. That's why today was so important. That's why we didn't jump ahead into this text and read. And that's why today is a longer than normal podcast. Usually I keep them to about 2 hours. Today's closer to 4 hours. Because of how important it is. So, huge and good for you if you've been through this, and I hope you see the significance of this, and I hope you're as enthusiastic about going through the work that we have to do in this last section next time. So with that huge cliffhanger and teaser, and the bombshell about maybe even a fifth and sixth dimension, I hope you join me next time. Thank you so much for playing along. Thank you for following along on the stream. Had a lot of chatters today. Had our first raid today. That was exciting. Had a lot of great questions. And if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment if you like. Feel free to like and subscribe and share it to your friends. That is the proper learning. Repeat it, share it. And if you're in the second stage, you've gone from lover of learning to lover of philosophy, and you're developing the art of the logos. If you're doing dialectics, feel free to join the Discord. There should be a link below. Share your thoughts, share your work, share your dialectics, and share your mythology or works of art that mythologize it. That's exciting. If you have the financial means to support, you can do so on Patreon. I know not everyone can, and it's not needed, but it's greatly appreciated if you think this work is important and worth sharing and worth maintaining. Thank you so much if you can support on Patreon. And you can follow along with Twitch. And on all that note, with this huge cliffhanger, I hope you're puzzled. I hope you have interesting dreams tonight, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you so much.